proposed to increase the rebate limit to 7 lakh in the new tax regime. Thus, persons in the new tax regime with income up to 7 lakhs will not have to pay any tax at all.
Namaste, Jai Hind, and welcome to Budget 2023, our continuous rolling coverage here at CNN News 18. With me, the managing editor, Zaka Jacob, and we also have our political editor, Maria Shakil. I'm just keeping the introduction short and crisp because we've got plenty of ground to cover, ladies and gentlemen, because this budget in an hour and 25 minutes covers everybody. It's a sabka budget. That was what was promised by the Finance Minister as she began her address on the floor of the House, that this will be an inclusive budget. So let's quickly look at the highlights of Budget 2023 and why we say it's sabka budget. It's got fiscal prudence in consideration. It's got poll considerations. So there is about the vision of Bharat in 2047, but there is also the vision of the ballot in 2024 and of course the build-up in the states. We got Zaka on the wall, not with the poll numbers, but with the budget numbers this time. And we look at all of that in detail. But let's signpost some of the salient features. The growth via higher capital spending up by 33% to 10 lakh crore rupees. It surprised everybody and the corporate world has welcomed it. Focus on fiscal prudence continues. No tax on salary up to 7 lakh rupees in the new tax regime. So it's an out and out rebate if your salary is 7 lakhs. If it is more than that, then you get into the slabs, which have also been revised in the new tax regime. Tax savings for young and retired continue. Nudge to the new tax regime is very clearly evident. This capex target of 10 lakh crore is very, very important because this capital expenditure is what will solve perhaps the jobs problem, ladies and gentlemen. Is everybody happy about it? We have to wait and see whether or not everybody is happy about it. What are the other allocations and some of the other sectors that have been taken care of in this budget? Let's try and understand. The PM Awas Yojana, the outlay has been hiked by 66%. So the construction, building of homes, affordable homes for those for whom the dream of a makan, their own makan, a chhat on their head, was a far distant dream. They want to take that further. But what that does is that again generates employment, the steel industry, cement industry, and of course the labor-intensive industry. 35,000 crore for green energy transition, and it's being incentivized because sustainability, green energy is one of the 7 pillars which the Finance Minister said Saptarishi. 2.4 lakh crore out of the 10 lakh crore is the outlay for railways. So infrastructure push continues. So they're on that path. They're staying steady and they're not deviating from it. It's perhaps the biggest ever allocation that's ever happened for railways. And then what are the other salient features that stand out? Is there something in there for the Kisan? Yes. Is skilling an important aspect that will be considered? Yes. And these pushes are over the next 3-year horizon. So they're looking beyond Lok Sabha 2024. And the Prime Minister very, very clearly said, a Samriddha, Samarth and Sampanna Bharat. That's the vision for 2047. So let's try and break up what stands out. For you and me, the salaried class, ladies and gentlemen, the highlight is tax mein kuch bachega ke liye, tax mein kuch bachega liye. For 2 years, nothing happened, Zaka. But this time, big bang announcements.
Yeah, I think for the middle class, absolutely, it is the tax numbers that everybody is crunching. They're looking at the new tax regime. First of all, the big picture. The new tax regime up until last year had 7 slabs. She's now slashed that down to 5. So it's an important thing. The big announcement, of course, is that if you have an income, like Anand was saying, up to 7 lakh rupees, then you pay no income tax whatsoever. Anything above 7 lakhs, then this is the new tax regime. These are the rates as per which you will be paying your tax. So let's assume you have an income of 8 lakh rupees, which means for the first 3 lakh rupees, you will not be paying any income tax. Between 3 lakh and 6 lakh rupees, that's 3 lakh rupees, you will pay 5%, that's 15,000 rupees. And then for the remaining 6 lakh to 8 lakh, which is 2 lakh rupees, you will pay at 10%, which is 30,000. So effectively, your net tax at an income of 8 lakh rupees annually would be 45,000 rupees, which would be a net saving, and we'll get to that in 1 second. But I think what they've essentially done, what the Finance Minister has essentially done, is rationalize both the slabs and the rates. From 7 rates, we've gone down to 5 rates now. And I think that is a very, very clear signal, a nudge that the new tax regime is where you need to be.
Where we go back to that number, ये बस trailer था, just to give you an understanding. There are many people who have more questions and more issues. We'll play out what the Prime Minister. There's one other important aspect, salient feature of the budget, which are the sectors where the focus has been kept, along with, of course, doing something for the middle class. It's not a populist budget, many people say, but if you look at the fine print, all the various dynamics which will be used over the next 18 months are there. The play is there. 15,000 crore for tribal development, an important vote bank which been spoken about. There is huge amounts of investment in agri-tech, agricultural startups, and of course rising millet production. Again, incentivizing the farmer. Dairy, fisheries, again, water bank, which is going to be critical, which is going to be important. So revamped credit guarantee for MSMEs, another sector which is critical if you want to boost our manufacturing. So all of this is now considered. We have the Prime Minister's position or opinion on the budget. We'll play all of that. But first, let's get across to the Sherpa at the G20 now. But he has also worn multiple hats in the past, and he's been integral to this growth story that's been charted over the course of the last 8 years and into this full budget, the last full budget of Modi 2.0. He needs no introduction, but as always, fantastic to speak with you. Amitabh Kanji, namaste. Your thought process. Namaskar. Fiscal prudence versus populism. It was not easy, but how do you rate this budget?
Well, I rate this budget as a budget for a new India. It's a budget which pushes the consumption story of India, which was very important, because consumption, putting more resources into the hands of the middle class, will push consumption, which in turn will push capacity utilization, which will then push greater investments from private sector and create this vicious cycle of production and productivity in India, which was very important. Second is, of course, this huge focus on infrastructure, which has been done with 10 lakh crores, which is a remarkable thing, because the finance minister has maintained a lot of fiscal discipline, because when you move from 6.4 to 5.9 and lay down your medium-term strategy of 4.5, you are basically crowding in private sector investment over a long period. I think the main challenge to India's growth story is about two things. One is more consumption and reviving the animal spirit of the private sector, which I think this budget will remarkably do in the coming days. The other two remarkable things about this budget was also this focus on going digital, not in one sector, across Indian economy, and going green, which is very, very important, because with the border tax of Europe coming in 2026, it's very important to do this energy transition and go green. So these are some of the remarkable things which have happened in this budget. It's a transformative budget.
Himalayas, green fuel, and of course the oceans. These could be perhaps our resource pools going forward in the future. But the Prime Minister also said, not just India, the world is watching this budget of 2023-24. India leading the G20 this year. It's the onus, the world is here in India. How do you think the global fraternity will receive this budget, Mr. Khan?
So, Anand, the important thing to understand is that the world is going through several crises. You know, there's a geopolitical crisis, there's a post-COVID crisis, 200 million people have gone below poverty line, there's a crisis of fuel, food and fertilizer. In the midst of all this, India is the fastest growing large economy. And what India has done through this budget is really to accelerate the pace of this growth. Also, what it has demonstrated is its huge determination to use technology to pole vault in many ways, also push many of its own priorities. You know, the women-led development story, which is a priority of G20, or a priority of inclusive and resilient growth. Many of those priorities are driven through this budget. So this budget converges many of the G20 priorities of India in a very big way, and it demonstrates India's huge political will to be a driver of growth in the coming days and a driver of transformative changes.
One highlight, final question, Mr. Kant, one highlight for you. The middle class is looking at the tax slabs. The corporate world is looking at the capex of the government and whether or not they're going to create a investment-friendly environment. For you, what stands out? One single highlight.
So, for me, this budget is remarkable for its huge focus on green growth, which is very critical in the years to come. This budget is transformative for being digitally very savvy, and both these will be the transformative story of India in the coming days. If you can do the green leapfrogging, and if you can be the transformative digital transformation story of the world, then you are rising in many, many sunrise areas of growth. This budget also focuses a lot on technology and energy storage, energy battery storage, pump storage. All these will make India grow rapidly in the years to come.
Mr. Khan, thank you very much. We look forward to speaking to you at length, not just on G20, but also along with the budget and, of course, the roadmap. Like you said, we are going through really tough times geopolitically. Thank you. Thank you very much for speaking with us. Let's quickly move on, ladies and gentlemen. Plenty of guests. It's an array of voices with various opinions and perspectives on the budget. Joining us now is the CEO of NITI Aayog, Param Ayerji. Parmeshwaran Ayerji, namaskaram. Thank you very much. You've worn a different hat when the Swachh Bharat mission started. You've just come back from Davos. You've pitched the India story. Does this budget breathe life into the innovation process? You get the cue on life. Yeah.
I think it does more than that, Anand. It doesn't just breathe life, it sort of vigorously blows life into the whole inclusive growth agenda of the government. Coming back from Davos, where there was huge interest expressed in investing in India, I think this budget now is going to push that interest even further. It's of course very balanced. I think it's a growth with inclusion budget. Several highlights which many people would have spoken about. But I think that a couple of important features which I would like to highlight. First of all, I think it's a budget for everyone. All sections of society, from the vulnerable to industry. I think it's got something for every section. But apart from that, I think that the big focus on capital expenditure, the huge increase in capital expenditure, 10 lakh crores in the coming year, the incentive to the states for the 50-year interest-free loan of 1.3 lakhs to them, with of course some reforms to be done. The creation of the setting up of the National Urban Infrastructure Fund for Tier 2, Tier 3 cities. So I think this budget in terms of infrastructure is taking it all the way down. It's not just limiting it to metros and the largest cities. So there's a big push. The railways have got 2.4 lakh crores, the highest ever. So the capex spending, the commitment on capex spending is sending a huge signal for infrastructure, for development, for growth, for jobs. That's on the one side. And then if you look at what does it have for inclusion, you can go from the remarkable 15,000 crore PMPVTG mission for tribal development, the particularly vulnerable tribal groups. I mean, that's a phenomenal announcement. There are about 28 to 30 lakhs of this section, which is at the lowest end of the tribal population. And now the idea is to get them basic services in just 3 years. That is phenomenal. Again, the push on that, then of course, there are a number of other programs. We can get into detail. But I would say another important point I wanted to highlight is the emphasis on results-based financing. Perhaps not much noticed. The Finance Minister spoke about the need to shift towards focusing on inputs and how much money you've spent, and rather focus on what are the outcomes. What have you actually achieved? And how is that verified? So that will be piloted in the coming year in a few programs. I think that's a very important signal. And then of course is the working with states. I think that's where NITI in particular has done a lot of work. The State Support Mission, where we are working with state governments and helping them articulate and develop their own inclusive growth and GDP goals. What is the capacity to do that? What are the state institutes of transformation which need to be set up? So when planning became NITI, and it's more about development strategy, how are states taking this approach forward? How are we, so we are helping them in areas in which we have comparative advantage on digital, on renewable energy, on PPPs, on asset monetization. So all this work is going on. And then, of course, taking development down to the lowest level. The FM
level.
spoke about the aspirational block program. Yeah, which earlier we were focusing at the district level, the aspirational district program. Now it's about how you take it down to that level, look at 500 blocks in the country, and how can we, bring them up, leapfrog them to development and bring them up and beyond to the state average. So a lot of initiatives, a lot of, I think, very important growth-related initiatives taken in the budget. I think this is going to be a big push over the coming years.
What will be the thrust for the NITI Aayog in the next 3 years? Are you going to play a key role in skilling? Because that's been highlighted. And you also said that the finance minister has also said result-based financing or result-oriented financing. Will the state governments actively participate? Because there is huge pressure on NITI Aayog to get the states to also participate. There's also the thrust on building a strong, robust public digital infrastructure.
No, absolutely. So we already have a very robust public digital infrastructure. I mean, whether you look at payments or identity or data, it's already, I mean, we are leading in the world in that. And in fact, we can contribute to learning across the world. For NITI Aayog, working on areas where we specialize, on digital, on electric mobility, on technology, on startups with our Atal Innovation Mission, and with our Development Monitoring and Evaluation Office, which is now going to focus on results-based financing, which was announced by the Finance Minister, and taking it down to the states. It's very, very important with the increase in developmental expenditure to make sure that it is well spent and it actually leads to outcomes on the ground. So that needs to be independently verified. Our Development Monitoring and Evaluation Office has started specializing in this, and those lessons will be taken not just to central ministries, but also building capacity for state governments to implement in their arena.
Param Iyer ji, thank you very much for your time. We'll chat at length very soon. We've got plenty of ground to cover on this coverage today on the budget. I appreciate your time, sir. Thank you very much.
And with that, let's listen in to the Prime Minister himself, who spoke to the media soon after the budget was presented by Nirmala Sitharaman. Let's not forget, this is the last full budget before the general elections of 2024. The Prime Minister has said that this has laid foundation for building developed India.
अमृत काल का ये पहला बजट विकसित भारत के विराट संकल्प को पूरा करने के लिए एक मजबूत नींव का निर्माण करेगा। ये बजट वंचितों को वरीयता देता है। ये बजट आज की एस्पिरेशनल सोसाइटी, गांव, गरीब, किसान, मध्यम वर्ग, सभी के सपनों को पूरा करेगा। मध्यम वर्ग के साथ खड़ी रहने वाली हमारी सरकार ने मध्यम वर्ग को टैक्स में बड़ी राहत दी है। इस सर्वस्पर्शी और विकसित भारत के निर्माण को गति देने वाले बजट के लिए मैं फिर एक बार निर्मला जी और उनकी पूरी टीम को बहुत-बहुत बधाई देता हूं।
Samriddh, Samarth or Sampann Bharat. These were the three pillars on which India is envisioning its road ahead till 2047. But as Nirmala Sitharaman said, 7 pillars or Saptarishi. First up, inclusive development announcements for women, SC, ST, OBCs, other underprivileged groups, along with taking care of the salaried middle class, the government employees who are going to retire, pension person, senior citizens, everybody's been spoken about. Reaching the last mile or Antyodaya, this has been a stated vision, and they want to follow the ideals of Vinoba Bhave and the likes of Deen Dayal Upadhyay and Mahatma Gandhi. So aspirational blocks program for distribution of government services. So from aspirational districts, they move to block level, where they also want to encourage governments, state governments to start building unity malls where everybody can converge. Farmers, local producers can come there and sell their produce. So unity malls is something which they want to push. Capex outlay increased steeply by 33%. So this is the infrastructure and investment. That's the third pillar. The fourth pillar is unleashing the potential. National data governance policy for innovation and research for startups. This time around, very aggressively pushing agri-startups. So at the rural level, encouraging entrepreneurship and a certain level of initiative. Financial sector, it looks at the MSME revamp schemes, getting an infusion of 9,000 crore plus into the entire corpus and strengthening what is going to be the driving force in our push to becoming a manufacturing economy or a nation too, along with services. 35,000 crore capital investment towards energy transition. Green growth is something which we are committed to, and like Mr. Kant and Paramayar were saying, sustainability is core to our growth and we need to leapfrog, take that jump, and that can be done only with youth power. So the next pillar, PM Kaushal Vikas Yojana 4.2 to skill lakhs of youth with new age courses, on-the-job training and sector-wise skilling. And this will be also part of the entire Vishwakarma initiative, where those who are doing the hard skilled labor and work, craftsmen, they will also be encouraged. So these are the 7 pillars that Ms. Nirmala Sitharaman, the Finance Minister, spoke about. Let's listen into a short excerpt of her 1 hour, 25-minute long budget speech.
I propose to increase the rebate limit to 7 lakh in the new tax regime, the new personal income tax regime, with 6 income slabs starting from 2.5 lakh. I propose to change the tax structure in this regime by reducing the number of slabs to 5 and increasing the tax exemption limit to 3 lakhs. The new tax rates are 0 to 3 lakh, nil. 3 to 6 lakhs, 5%. 6 to 9 lakhs, 10%. 9 to 12 lakh, 15%. 12 to 15 lakhs, 20%. And above 15 lakhs, 30%. Mahila Samman Savings Certificate will be made available for a 2-year period up to March 2025. This will offer deposit facility up to 2 lakh in the name of a woman or girls for a tenure of 2 years at fixed interest rate of 7.5% with partial withdrawal option. The maximum deposit limit for senior citizens savings scheme will be enhanced from 15 lakh to 30 lakhs of rupees. The maximum deposit limit for monthly income account scheme will be enhanced from 4.5 lakh to 9 lakh for single account and from 9 lakh to 15 lakh for joint account. Pradhan Mantri Kaushal Vikas Yojana 4.0 will be launched to skill lakhs of youth within the next 3 years. On-job training, industry partnership, and alignment of courses with needs of industry will be emphasized.
Let me take all questions to the panelists who are joining me now. Tuhin Sinha, spokesperson of the BJP, Salman Soz, Congress spokesperson, Mohandas Pai, chairman of RN Capital Partners, Dr. Krishna Ella, executive chairman, Bharat Biotech, and we also have Gaurav Chaudhary. I'm going to begin with you, Mohandas Pai. Your first reaction, of course, it is being said that this is not a populist budget, but one which believes in looking at the politics of it clearly.
Well, I think it's a truly transformative budget for many reasons. You know, tax collections have increased more than what is budgeted, from 27.5 lakh crores to around 31 lakh crores. I think it's an underestimate. We could have final taxes by another 1 lakh crore this year, because tax buoyancy in direct taxes up to January 7th is about 19% net of refunds, right? And next year they're saying 33, it could go to 35. So it showed that there's real good growth in the economy. And during the NDA regime, GDP would have grown from 113 lakh crores to 301 lakh crores by March 2024. That is very good news. Second is, I like the fact that on social schemes, spending has increased. Prime Minister Modi is making sure by 2024, almost all Indians will have a house, water in the tap, power in the switch, toilet in the house, a bank account, money in the bank, education for children, food on the table, a health insurance, a mobile connection, etc., which is fantastic because we don't want anybody in India to be deprived. And the third is the massive spending on infrastructure, 7.5 lakh crores this year, 10 lakh crores next year. And I think that is very good because that will create more jobs.
Yes.
We are creating 9 lakh jobs per month as per the EPFO, out of which 55% are jobs in the age group of 18 to 25. But the jobs do not pay more than 20,000 rupees, up to 80%. So I think there's need to increase that. That will happen if there's growth. And then what they're doing in terms of targeted schemes for people below the poverty line, the 500 blocks where aspiration is happen, etc., is very good. As far as business is concerned, investment in increased infrastructure is very good. Increased digitization is very good. The banking sector has been cleaned up because the UPI had done telephone banking, given loans to many cronies which had to be written up. And I think that's very good. They cleaned up. There has been no corruption in the NDA for the last 9 years.
Responsible and a comprehensive budget. Dr. Ella, if I'm looking at the health budget, which has been hiked by almost 15% to 88,956 from 77,351 crores, do you think that is particularly because after what we saw in the pandemic and the health sector needs that kind of push?
I think, they've done the great job to balance the rural economy, health, skill development. And I think the more focus was focused on the rural economy. And that deserves, certainly. But health, I think, putting the 157 nursing colleges are very critical because we're going to see a shortage of nurses in the country. A lot of them are leaving the country. A lot of them are shortage. I think that's a good move. And sickle cell anemia. I think we never thought about that. It's an important game where a lot of tribal population is going to screen for the 0 to 40 years for sickle cell anemia. I think they're a good initiative. And I think ICMR has been told to work with the public-private partnership. That is what I've been arguing, that every government institute should work with industry to partner in the healthcare also. I think that has been formalized. And certainly the R&D and innovation, medical devices, look at it, they are putting high-end manufacturing, skill set development. And for example, 3D manufacturing and drones and artificial intelligence for the healthcare. And as certainly the focus on skill development. I think that's a good move. And I consider it's whatever they've done, although the more focus was on rural economy than the health, but certainly is welcome sign. Thank you.
In terms of employment generation, one point being made is that, of course, this push that has been given to infrastructure, if that entire capital outlay for railways has increased substantially, it will lead to employment generation. What do you see vis-a-vis the health sector?
The health sector is still not focused heavily on that, but certainly they put more on the innovation side. Pharma, R&D should invest more into that, but there's no specifics of that yet. So we need to know what the specifics of any incentive or anything is given. But the Finance Ministry has mentioned that there is a push for the R&D and manufacturing and the pharma skill development. But I think it's still not mentioned fine details of it. But I think this whole financial bill is really good on the rural economy. I'll tell you a few bullet points on the rural economy, if you allow me that. The entire thing on the women entrepreneurship and all scheduled caste OBC integration in this and digital agriculture infrastructure. I think that's a very critical crop planning because we farmers grow crop and then you lose the market. Everybody grows one crop and then lose the market. I think this crop planning will help the country to portion on that digital infrastructure. And also agriculture accelerated fund is going to help a lot of startups of this country in agriculture. That focus again. And a high value horticulture crops, although it is not mentioned what the crops are, but certainly there is going to be an export potential for the agriculture, horticulture crops, where the pomegranate can be exported to other part of the world. And millets, of course, the Honorable Prime Minister has been talking, and that has been there. Animal husbandry got a very good incentive. Fisheries is amazing incentive. And I think there's a lot of people who are in the coastal area are going to benefit in this. So again, it's a rural economy. And look at Ekalavya school. It is again a rural economy, rural schools, where the tribal population is going to be integrated into the schools. That is again, and also the Honorable Finance Minister mentioned artificial intelligence drones has to be integrated into the agriculture. So that is again getting into these startups where they're going to involve in agriculture. And I think biocompost. I mean, I hope we don't get into Sri Lankan model where they got into biocompost issue, but I think they've done smartly putting a 10,000 bio centers where they can make a biomanure, biopesticides right in the rural economy, not coming from the top down. It's at the bottom down.
Dr.
I think that's a good move. I think these are all the good strategies for the economy. When a consumer increases, the awareness increases, farmers' economy increases, the health is also benefited in that process.
Dr. Ella, you've highlighted a lot of aspects as part of this budget. Tuhin Sinha of the BJP is with us. I'm just going to go across to check if Mr. Mohandas Pai is also with us. There he is. He is there with us. And Gaurav Chaudhary is also with us. Salman Sozji, namaste. This is Anand Narsimhan here. Thank you. Thank you for joining us. Mohandas Pai ji, one of the aspects in this is that the corporates were unhappy with returns, long-term capital gains, and also certain debentures now being considered as market instruments. So the taxation rates have gone up. So some of those aspects, many believe, should not have been touched. Where do you stand on that, even though many are welcoming the slash in the tax slabs?
Look, the earlier long-term capital gain exemption for investment in a house, unlimited, was wrong. I totally agree that 10 crore is the limit. It should have been brought down to 5 crores. There's no reason why if you get a long-term capital gains of 7-8 crores, you should not pay tax. You should pay tax. If I sell my shares, I pay 10% tax. What is the difference with selling a property? So if I invest, why should I get the benefit? I think that's right. I agree with that. And this MLD program, whatever it is, market-linked debentures, where they wanted to make it as a long-term capital gain, that's a structured instrument. So any structured instrument which is created to avoid taxation or reduce the rate of taxation, I am all for taxing them at normal rates because there are distortions in the market. I think if these people are unhappy, it is fine. Let them be unhappy. You know, I bear nothing for people who are earning high income. But one thing is, I like that. I want the tax rate to be brought down from 39% to 35%, and to plug the loopholes in the taxes. Because, you know, for the last many years, more than 40,000 high net worth individuals have left this country.
Correct.
And I think we should make sure that they don't leave the country, because each high net worth individual will be spending 3 to 5 crores in the country. The spending power is gone. There are many reasons for them going, and one of them was the 43% tax slab, or the high tax rates, and the CBI, all this kind of inquiries without end. So I think, you know, it should make life easier for people who earn money. Please remember, Anand, you know, that Revenue Secretary said only 1 crore people pay any taxes.
Correct.
Now, you've got to treat this 1 crore people well. Yes, you've got to plug the tax loopholes. We all have to pay tax, but don't overtax this 1 crore people. They are the productive people. So I think all this I agree, but we must improve reduce the tax terrorism. The tax terrorism, the amount in dispute has gone up to 12 lakh crores from 4.5 lakh crores in 2014.
Right.
Former Finance Minister Jaitley had promised us that he'll reduce tax terrorism. But in the last 10 years, tax authorities have got
tax
more
terrorism was
power
openly spoken about, was very actively, clearly spoken about by the FM today. But looking at capital expenditure, Zaka Jacob is here. One of the aspects is that we as a country, Zaka, and we can take it to the panelists after you talk about it, are a traditionally saving kind of nature. We are risk averse. Now, will this kind of capital expenditure bring out the animal in corporate India? And will they start this whole aspect of risk-taking and spending rather than saving?
So this animal spirits, we've been talking about it for a while. Private investment hasn't come back to the levels that we saw in 2013-14. But I think the capex is a real story of this budget, because it's not just the fact that the headline figure is 10 lakh crores. That is 3.3% of GDP. It is the highest allocation for capital expenditure in any budget. But just look at how it is transformed just in the last couple of years. You have to keep in mind, in fiscal year 2021, which is when the pandemic struck, it was just 4.39 lakhs. So basically, in the last couple of years, you've gone from 4.39 lakh to 10 lakh crores. That's more than double. At a time when the rest of the world, you're seeing this in the US, you're seeing this in the UK, they're sort of beginning to become a lot more frugal now because inflation is running away there. To give this kind of an outlay is mind-boggling. It is very, very ambitious. And remember, the finance minister also in her budget speech today saying that the capex for the last year, that was again an aggressive target of 7.5 lakh crores, much of that has been met. So 10 lakh crores I think the interesting political sort of debate around this, and I want to ask Salman Soz this, is, some of this money obviously has been taken away from existing schemes. You cannot go from 4.39 lakh crores 2 years ago to 10 lakh crores. The money has to come from somewhere. Manrega, for example, monies have come. But don't you believe, Salman Soz, that even for that same rural constituency, it is better to spend in capital expenditure rather than, as some would say, doles like Manrega?
Thank you, Zaka and Anand, for getting to me. I know everybody's excited about this budget. This is an annual ritual as far as I can tell. The government comes out with the budget. Friends in media and the ecosystem of the BJP start calling it a masterstroke, transformative, green shoots of recovery, things like that. And every year, the same thing happens. Let me burst this bubble a little bit. As far as I'm concerned, a budget is not just about revenues and expenditures. A budget is in some ways an opportunity for a government to give citizens a sense of how their well-being can also be improved in the short term, because a lot of the budget is already spoken for. But does this budget, given India's economic situation, India's economy grew in the first quarter at about 13.5%, in the second quarter at about 6.5%, and given what the finance minister said, she said that India was going to grow at about 7%. The IMF says it's at about 6.8%, and then declining the next fiscal year. That tells us that in the last 2 quarters, the economy is averaging a growth rate of about 4.2%, something like that. That means things are not that good. But in this economy that is facing global headwinds as well, because the IMF has already projected that things are going to be a little turbulent in the future. What do we do for the people of the country? Is this government looking at poverty? Is this government looking at inequality? Is this government looking at unemployment? Or basically just trying to create jobs? Now, I know that everybody's very excited about capital expenditure, and I'll get to that. But let me just give you one data point. Things like social welfare, urban development, health, education, agriculture and allied activities. According to the government, these 5 very critical areas are far lower in terms of expenditure on these activities that is budgeted than transport. Now, you'll say the transport is very important. I do understand that transport is important. Capital expenditures are important. But any economist worth his, any decent economist would say that social infrastructure is as much, if not more important,
but
than
Salmanji,
hard infrastructure.
Salmanji, we can't.
I'm shocked that Indian policymakers.
Here are the numbers, Salmanji.
Learn this lesson.
Salmanji, here are the numbers. Spends on education have gone up by 13%. Spends on health have gone up by 15%. Spends on social welfare gone up by 18.4%. Spends on home affairs have gone up by 8% compared to the last budget. Yes, there is a huge amount of money that you are saying is going towards building roads and focusing on transport, but that's one of the basic needs. I will open this up for a larger discussion. Please bear with me to all our guests. We've got compelled to take a short break, and then I'll come back and we'll take this forward. Please stay with us.
My third proposal is for the salaried class and the pensioners, including family pensioners, for whom I propose to extend the benefit of standard deduction to the new tax regime. Each salaried person with an income of 15.5 lakh rupees or more will thus stand to benefit by 52,500 rupees. My fourth announcement in personal income tax is regarding the highest tax rate, which in our country is 42.74%. This is among the highest in the world. I propose to reduce the highest surcharge. I propose to reduce the highest surcharge rate from 37% to 25% in the new tax regime. This would result in reduction of the maximum rate. This would result in the reduction of the maximum tax rate to 39%. Lastly, the limit of 3 lakh rupees for tax exemption on leave encashment on retirement of non-government salaried employees was last fixed in the year 2002, when the highest basic pay in the government was only 30,000 rupees per month. In line with the increase in the government salaries, I am proposing to increase this limit to 25 lakh rupees. We are also making the new income tax regime as the default tax regime. However, citizens will continue to have the option to avail the benefit of the old tax regime. Apart from these, I am also making some other changes as given in the annexure. As a result of these proposals, revenue of about 38,000 crore to 37,000 crore in direct taxes and rupees 1,000 crore in indirect taxes will be foregone, while revenue of about 3,000 crore will be additionally mobilized. Thus, the total revenue foregone is about 35,000 crores annually. Honorable Speaker, sir, with these words, I commend the budget to this august House. 1 hour, 25 minutes.
Item number 1, Manye. Item number 2, Srimati Nirmala Sitharaman ji.
Sir, with your permission, I lay on the table of the following statements. Under Section 3(1) of the Fiscal Responsibility Budget Management Act 2003, 1. Medium-term fiscal policy cum fiscal policy strategy statement and macroeconomic framework statement. Now I come to what everyone is waiting for. Personal income tax. I have 5 major announcements to make in this regard. These primarily benefit our hard-working middle class. The first one concerns rebate. Currently, those with income up to 5 lakh do not pay any income tax in both old and new regimes. I propose to increase the rebate limit to 7 lakhs in the I propose to increase the rebate limit to 7 lakh in the new tax regime. Thus, persons in the new tax regime with income up to 7 lakhs will not have to pay any tax at all. The second proposal relates to middle class individuals. I had introduced in the year 2020 the new personal income tax regime with 6 income slabs starting from 2.5 lakh. I propose to change the tax structure in this regime by reducing the number of slabs to 5 and increasing the tax exemption limit to 3 lakhs. The new tax rates are 0 to 3 lakh, nil. 3 to 6 lakhs, 5%. 6 to 9 lakhs, 10%. 9 to 12 lakh, 15%. 12 to 15 lakhs, 20%. And above 15 lakhs, 30%. This will provide major relief to all taxpayers in the new regime. An individual with an annual income of 9 lakhs will be required to pay only 45,000.
Well, welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. We've been asking you to rate the budget, and let's just quickly get a check of how the Aam Aadmi has rated the budget so far. What are they feeling? There were 4 or 5 different metrics: excellent, good, average, and poor. So out of that, 43% have rated the budget as excellent, 18% have rated the budget as good, about 14% believe it's an average budget, and 26% say it's a very, very poor budget. If I got my math right, nearly 61% of our respondents have come out and said that this is a good or excellent budget. So they've given it a thumbs up, if not a double thumbs up. Dr. Jacob, are you going to give this a double thumbs up?
I definitely think it's a good budget, in as much as, generally when you have, infrastructure spending, the kind of ambitious targets that the finance minister has placed, 10 lakh crores, you have to ease up on the fiscal deficit glide path. She's done both the big announcement on infrastructure as well as stuck to the fiscal deficit glide path. I think that challenge, that fiscal tightrope walk, has been quite.
There are a lot of smileys. Tuhin Sinha, as we put the smiley and I take my chair, but the Congress and the opposition believe that you're putting the money in the wrong place, in the wrong bucket. Suppose if you were to take a leaf of what he said, you got your priorities mixed up. You're not spending where you need to.
The 14% respondents who rated it as a poor budget are probably the only Congress.
No, 26% rated it as poor, 14% rated it as average.
That's probably the opposition voters. But, I think if you look at the larger point, this budget is an important catalyst. It is an important milestone in India's larger foray into achieving goals over the next 2 decades. So I heard the Congress spokesperson, grudge over the amount that we are spending on capital expenditure. And yes, capital expenditure, the amount that we are spending is extraordinary, a 35% increase from the previous budget. And even in the previous budget, there was an increase of a similar percentage, 33 or 34%. But capital expenditure is not just about constructing roads or about railways. This is something the opposition does not understand. Job creation is inherent in it, number one. Number two, if you look at it in the last few years, if rural consumption has gone up, it is because of the seamless connectivity across the country. Today,
because it's a political charge that is coming in from Jairam Ramesh. He says that this is Modi's OPUD strategy, where over-promise and you essentially under-deliver.
No, I think they are out of touch with reality. I was just completing my point. If you look at it, the seamless connectivity with the Northeast, hasn't it led to an increase in consumption over there? So I think when they talk of disparities in the country, the best way to address the disparity, or one of the best ways, is to increase the capital expenditure. But the second point, if you look at it, look at the budget, you would not come across a more deft amalgamation of so many available reach outs to so many different people. For example, at the lowest strata of the society, you have a plan to address sickle cell anemia, which affects mostly the tribal districts. You have a plan to completely go for 100% mechanized sludging. So I think, this has you have the citizen savings, the exemption, or rather the limit
let's look at it, Tuhin Sinha, let's look at it from a very clearly, not just a Bharat point of view, from a ballot point of view. And Salmanji, this should have the opposition a little worried. Our research team has just pulled out some comparisons based on the schemes and which are the segments of society that they're targeting. Shweta Punj and Gaurav Chaudhary with us. Bear with me, please. I'll just get a comment from Salman Soz and then come across to you, Gaurav and Shweta. Now, the agriculture credit, let's just read this carefully. Agriculture credit target increased to 20 lakh crore rupees, alternative fertilizer. Who's the target? 54.6% of the Indian workforce engaged in agriculture and also allied sector activities. plus the huge burden of import on fertilizers, you're making local fertilizers. PM Matsya Sampada Yojana, targeted investment of 6,000 crore, 2.81 crore fishermen population in India, 9.74 lakh population in pole-bound Karnataka, 8.62 lakh in Telangana, 60 lakh in Bihar, 39 lakh in UP and 32 lakh in West Bengal. Then, Vishwakarma Kaushal Samman, PM Vishwakarma Kaushal Samman, estimated 6.8 million artisans in India, majority SC, STs, OBCs and women.
And the list is long.
Yeah, list is long. Awas Yojana, 50, around at least 50 categories in that Vishwakarma Yojana. PM Awas Yojana, 66% enhancement, 1.7 million homeless residents in 2011 census, mostly from Dalit, tribal and the OBC block. 5.3k crore for Upper Bhadra irrigation project, and then there is another allocation for Karnataka. This is again pole-bound Karnataka. Double senior citizen savings scheme deposit limit to 30 lakh rupees. 2011, 60 plus population accounted for 8.6% of the population, accounting for 103 million elderly people. This is 2011. So 2022, clearly that number has gone up. So Salman shows there is some thought behind some of these allegations.
Anand, thanks for coming back to me again. Well, if you look at any budget over the last 10, 15, 20 years, in every budget, there is a litany of things that the government does and tries to target different socioeconomic segments. This is not new. Of course, this is the election. Election is coming up, so the government will try and put money and try to buy votes, so to speak. However, ultimately, when all is said and done, the biggest priority for Indian citizens right now is to get jobs, for young people to get jobs. Now, I know our young friend from the BJP, he seems to think that people like myself, we don't know much about economics, but perhaps he and his government can then tell us that if capital expenditure is the way to generate jobs, especially union government capital expenditures, because capital expenditures are different. There are different types of capital expenditures.
Correct.
I would like to know from the BJP or the finance minister, how many jobs have been created by capex in the last 5 to 10
Perhaps
years?
Gaurav can
That's
answer
one.
that.
Second
He will be able to
point.
answer
I know the finance minister and everybody else is making a big deal out of these tax exemptions for what they call middle class taxpayers. We would like to get some data from the income tax department.
Salman Soz has asked a specific question related to job creation. Answer that question. Let Gaurav answer that question. Perhaps he'll be able to put some numbers there.
Yeah, so Maria, the thing is this. Now, just on capital expenditure itself, we are discussing a figure of 10 lakh crore. But if you take the grants in aid that the finance minister has announced through which states are going to spend on capital expenditure projects, and the total effective capital expenditure is 13.7 lakh crore. So that takes it to about 4.5% of GDP. Now, on the specific point whether capital expenditure by the government can actually create jobs, I don't think the government is actually saying that it's going to create jobs. But the emphasis is on crowding in private investment, and in the absence of private investment taking place, it is generally the government that has to do the heavy lifting.
Gaurav, I'm just going to interrupt you there. We've joined by Union Jal Shakti Minister Gajendra Shekhawat ji. Gajendra ji, namaste. Anand Narsimhan बोल रहा हूँ. आपका स्वागत है.
नमस्ते.
सबसे पहले तो मैं आपसे जानना चाहूंगा कि एक 27% वृद्धि हुई है जल जीवन मिशन के एलोकेशन में ही. देयर इज अ ह्यूज थ्रस्ट टुवर्ड्स जल शक्ति इन दिस बजट.
देखिए, माननीय प्रधानमंत्री जी के नेतृत्व में जिस तरह से जल जीवन मिशन पर काम हुआ है और हम लक्ष्य को लेकर के एक मिशन मोड में जिस तरह से काम कर रहे हैं, मुझे बहुत खुशी है कि जो आंकड़ा 16% होता था वो आज 58% को क्रॉस कर गया है, जहां पीने का पानी घर में नल के माध्यम से पहुंचता है. एब्सोल्यूट नंबर्स में बात करूं तो 3 करोड़ 23 लाख घरों तक पहुंचता था, आज 11 करोड़ के आंकड़े को हम पार कर चुके हैं. और पिछले वर्षों में जो योजनाएं प्रारंभ हुई थी, उन योजनाओं के पूरा होकर के उनके आंकड़े अब इस साल में बहुत तेज गति के साथ में बढ़ेंगे, ऐसा पूरा विश्वास है. हम लगभग मॉनिटर कर रहे हैं. ऐसी परिस्थिति में यह आवश्यकता थी कि हमारा बजट इस साल बढ़े ताकि हम और तेजी से काम करके 2024 तक इस लक्ष्य को पूर्ति कर सकें. मैं माननीय वित्त मंत्री जी को और आदरणीय प्रधानमंत्री जी को दोनों को इसके लिए धन्यवाद देना चाहता हूं कि उन्होंने हमारे बजट में वृद्धि करके उसको हमें और अधिक धनराशि इस लक्ष्य को, इस मिशन को पूरा करने के लिए.
पर विपक्ष का एक कटाक्ष है मंत्री जी कि मनरेगा से पैसे कम कर जल जीवन मिशन में डाले गए इससे लोगों को रूरल एम्प्लॉयमेंट में कैसे वृद्धि होगी, जॉब्स कैसे जनरेट होंगे?
देखिए, मुझे लगता है कि दोनों बिल्कुल एब्सोल्युटली डिफरेंट विषय हैं, लेकिन इनमें कोरिलेशन भी है। जहां तक नरेगा का विषय है, नरेगा में जो है, नरेगा बेसिकली इज ए डिमांड ड्रिवन स्कीम। अगर हम उठा करके देखें तो पिछले साल का रिवाइज एस्टिमेट्स को और इस साल का बजट एस्टिमेट, इन दोनों को उठा करके देखें तो हमें ये जो है कंफ्यूजन समाप्त हो जाएगा। जहां तक रोजगार के सृजन का विषय है, जल जीवन मिशन में जो काम धरातल पर होता है, पाइप आता है, उसके अतिरिक्त टंकी बनती है, ट्रेंचेस खोदे जाते हैं, प्लम्बर्स को रोजगार मिलता है, मैसन्स को रोजगार मिलता है, मजदूरों को रोजगार मिलता है, मशीन ऑपरेटर्स को रोजगार मिलता है। यदि रोजगार की दृष्टि से बात करें तो धरातल पर जितना काम जो है जल जीवन मिशन में होता है, उसका लगभग 30-35% पैसा जो है वो मजदूरी के रूप में नीचे जाता है। तो इसलिए यह कहना कि इन दोनों के बीच में कोई कोरिलेशन नहीं है, ये तो ठीक नहीं होगा। निश्चित रूप से जल जीवन मिशन से भी रोजगार सृजन होता है। और नरेगा के विषय में मैं सिर्फ इतना कहना चाहता हूं कि जब कोविड की आपदा आई थी, हम सब ने देखा था कि 60,000 करोड़ का बजटरी एलोकेशन था, लेकिन आवश्यकता थी, डिमांड हुई तो 1 लाख करोड़ तक दिया गया। मुझे लगता है कि इसको लेकर के अननेसेसरी जो है नॉन इश्यू को इश्यू बनाने की कोशिश की जा रही है। डिमांड अगर होगी, रिक्वायरमेंट होगी, तो रिवाइज एस्टिमेट्स में उसको और भी बढ़ाया जा सकता है।
गजेंद्र जी, मैं वो जो आप बोल रहे हैं एस्टिमेट इंक्रीज किया गया, उसमें बहुत अच्छा एक पॉइंट है दैट 11 करोड़ हाउसहोल्ड्स हैव बीन प्रोवाइडेड विद ड्रिंकिंग वाटर सो फार, अप फ्रॉम 3 करोड़ इन 2019, और आप लोगों का एस्टिमेटेड टारगेट है 2024 तक लगभग 20 करोड़ हाउसहोल्ड में ड्रिंकिंग वाटर का टैप होगा। दिस इज लाइक अ वेरी एम्बिशियस plan of the government. Then do you see this almost like a game changer in 2024 for the BJP, your party?
100%। मैं केवल इसको चुनाव के दृष्टिकोण से नहीं देखता और नहीं मुझे टिप्पणी करना चाहिए, बट मैं इतना जरूर कहूंगा कि जो गरीब व्यक्ति, जो महिलाएं जिनके घर में पीने का पानी पहुंचता है, मैं नहीं जानता आप में से कितने लोगों ने वो अभाव देखा होगा कि घर में पीने का पानी नहीं पहुंचता। मैं तो जैसलमेर और मैं जन्म लिया हूं, मैं जानता हूं कि पीने का पानी घर में लाने के लिए एक महिला को जीवन पर्यंत संघर्ष करना पड़ता है। 10-12 साल की उम्र की जब लड़की होती है ना साहब, तब वो मटका रख करके पानी लाना शुरू करती है और उसकी भूमिकाएं घर में बदलती है। छोटी बच्ची से बड़ी बच्ची हो जाती है, बड़ी बेटी से जो है सयानी बेटी हो जाती है, शादी हो जाती है, किसी घर की बहू बन जाती है, बच्चे हो जाते हैं, बच्चों की माँ हो जाती है, बड़ी बहू बन जाती है, बच्चों की शादी हो जाती है तो सास बन जाती है, दादी नानी बन जाती है। लेकिन एक चीज स्थायी रूप से उसके सिर पर रहती थी, वो होता था मटका। और उस मटके को उतारने का दर्द, जो मटका उतारने की जो खुशी होती है और उसके जीवन में जो परिवर्तन आता है, जो इंसेंटिव उसके कारण से उस परिवार में आता है, जो क्वालिटी का पानी मिलने के कारण से उनके परिवार के जीवन में जो परिवर्तन आता है। आप कल्पना करिए कि ऐसा पानी जो ये माँ ये जानती है, बेटी ये जानती है कि ये पानी मैं पिला रही हूं अपने परिवार वालों को, अपने पिता को, अपने पति को, अपने बच्चे को, वो पानी पीने से वो हमेशा के लिए उनके जीवन में अक्षमता आ सकती है, लेकिन फिर भी मजबूर है। आज उसके घर में कितना बड़ा परिवर्तन है।
बिल्कुल, क्योंकि
मैं इसको चुनाव की दृष्टि से नहीं देखता।
मैं बिहार से हूं और मैं जानती हूं कि ये बहुत ही एसेंशियल है। बहुत सारे गांव में आज भी पानी की दिक्कत है। मेरा सवाल ये है कि वो जो स्टेट्स जो भाजपा में से, वहां पे भाजपा की सरकार नहीं है, वहां पे कितना आप इंप्लीमेंट कर पाएंगे ये स्कीम? क्या रिस्पॉन्स रहा है अभी तक?
राजस्थान को ही
देखिए, बैरिंग 2 या 3 स्टेट्स को मैं छोड़ दूं, जिसमें राजस्थान मेरा स्टेट भी एक है, छत्तीसगढ़ एक स्टेट है, झारखंड एक स्टेट है, जहां तीनों जगह भारतीय जनता पार्टी की सरकार नहीं होने के बावजूद भी वहां काम नहीं हो पा रहा है। कम गति में, विकास की गति में पीछे हैं। लेकिन अगर भारतीय जनता पार्टी स्टेट्स में भी, कुछ स्टेट्स में अभी काम की जिस तरह की गति होनी चाहिए उतना नहीं पकड़ पाया है। लेकिन ओवरऑल अगर मैं मैक्रो पिक्चर देश भर की देखता हूं तो देश में बहुत सारे प्रदेशों ने, बिहार में तो भारतीय जनता पार्टी की सरकार नहीं थी, तेलंगाना में भारतीय जनता पार्टी की सरकार नहीं थी, लेकिन उन स्टेट्स ने 100% को अचीव किया है। इसलिए जितना मैं इसको जिस तरह से डे टू डे बेसिस पर हम मॉनिटर करते हैं, टेक्नोलॉजी के आधार पर भी करते हैं, फिजिकली भी करते हैं, मैं जो है उसके अलग अलग लेवल्स पर मंथली, वीकली, क्वार्टरली और मुख्यमंत्रियों के साथ में रिव्यू करते हैं। मुझे पूरा विश्वास है कि 2024 तक हम इस लक्ष्य को 100% पूरा कर पाएंगे।
गजेंद्र जी, अंतिम प्रश्न, कहीं ना कहीं जितना भी सरकार प्रपोज करे, स्टेट गवर्नमेंट्स, राज्य सरकारें अगर साथ ना दें तो फिर आप नहीं इंप्लीमेंट कर पाएंगे। कहीं ना कहीं ये जाकर चुनावी मुद्दा तो नहीं बन जाएगा कि अगर वेलफेयर पहुंचता है तो फिर आपको लाभ होगा तो इसको ब्लॉक किया जाए? ताकि आरोप प्रत्यारोप में फिर दोषारोपण आपके ऊपर हो? आपको लगता है ये बड़ी चुनौती होगी?
देखिए, जब स्कीम शुरू हुई थी तब स्कीम को हमें ऊपर से पुश करना पड़ता है, लेकिन जब स्कीम 50% तक लोगों के घर में पानी पहुंच जाता है, आपके मेरे गांव में पानी पहुंच गया और पड़ोस के गांव में, अगर आपका बिहार में गांव है और आपके गांव में नहीं पहुंचेगा तो फिर जनता बहुत अच्छी तरह से समझती है कि कौन और क्यों नहीं चाप कर रहा है। और चुनाव की राजनीति में या लोकतंत्र में जब नीचे से डिमांड ड्रिवन, नीचे से किसी चीज की डिमांड खड़ी हो जाती है, जब धरातल से उसके लिए आवाज आने लग जाती है, तब उसको रोकना शायद मुझे लगता है कि किसी भी राजनीतिक पार्टी के लिए या सरकार के लिए संभव नहीं होता।
कुछ चीजें राजनीति के लिए नहीं, राज्य और राष्ट्र के लिए भी करना चाहिए। आशा यही रखते हैं कि हर कोई वही करेगा। गजेंद्र शेखावत जी, आपसे बात करके अच्छा लगा, धन्यवाद।
इसी लक्ष्य के साथ में काम कर रहे हैं।
थैंक यू सो मच फॉर योर टाइम सर।
धन्यवाद।
So it's budget 2023, ladies and gentlemen. It's Sabka budget with a vision for 2047, but also mapping the road ahead to 2024.
The demand in the rural areas for employment. Unemployment in the country is at a very, very great high. Where has she talked about unemployment at all?
नील बट्टा सन्नाटा है। बिहार को फिर से ठगा गया, कुछ भी नहीं मिला बिहार को।
बजट वही है जो पिछले 8-9 साल से आ रहा है। आवाम को फायदा देने के बजाय जो वेलफेयर स्कीम्स हैं उनको खत्म किया जा रहा है, सब्सिडीज को खत्म किया जा रहा है।
Thank you for staying with us here at CNN News 18. I'm Anand Narasimhan. With me, Zaka Jacob and Maria Shakil. Budget 2023, Sabka budget. Samriddh, Samarth, Sampanna Bharat by 2047. That's the vision with Bharat, the priority. But is the ballot consideration also there for us to see in the fine print of budget 2023-24, ladies and gentlemen, the build-up to Lok Sabha 2024? Let's quickly get through the key highlights and the focus. The focus has been on capital expenditure, focus has been on skilling, and the focus has also been giving some relief to the Aam Aadmi. Let's try and signpost some of the key features. What stands out is growth via higher capital spending. That's the route the government has decided to take. So there is fiscal prudence, there is a revised or a lower estimate of the fiscal deficit from 6.4% to 5.9%, with the commitment to get to 4.5% by 25-26. 10 lakh crore capex, tax savings for the young and retired, nudge to the new tax regime, hugely incentivized and focused clearly on fiscal prudence. So what stands out? What stands out is that in the new tax regime, the government wants people to migrate at the earliest. What also stands out that out of the 10 lakh crore investment in capital expenditure, nearly 2.4 lakh crore will go towards railways. This is a huge, huge first, ladies and gentlemen. This also shows the kind of push towards completing and building robust infrastructure that is there. Road, rail and air. PM Awas Yojana, the outlay has been hiked by 66%. So that is going to fuel a lot of employment and of course multiple segments. 35,000 crore for green energy transition. So sustainable growth is at the core. One of the 7 principles as Saptarishi that the Finance Minister highlighted. Then the 9th year of Modinomics. Over the last 8 years, we've seen this build. It's not a populist budget, but there is something in it for every segment of society. So will the voter remember when they go to cast the ballot? Will they see it implemented on ground? Huge push for tribal development, revamped credit guarantee for MSMEs. So every sector has been addressed, and then you have maintained fiscal prudence. Now, how did they maintain tax prudence, Zaka Jacob? How is the Ganit?
So have
you calculated how much you are saving?
To the new tax regime, no doubt about it. Let's break this down for the middle classes. Our viewers are most interested in this. If you're in different tax brackets, how much will you end up saving? So up to 7 lakh rupees, you don't pay any tax. You were paying 23,400 rupees, but that gets saved. If you get 10 lakhs per annum, under the old tax regime, you had to pay 78,000 as tax. And in the new tax regime, you're only paying 54,500. So that's a saving of 23,400. If your annual income is 15 lakhs per annum, earlier you had to pay 1.87 lakh rupees as your tax, your annual tax. That has now come down by about 30,000 or so to 1.5 lakhs only. If you had a 50 lakh income per annum, earlier you were paying just a shade under 13 lakh rupees as income tax annually. That has again come down by about 50,000. In fact, 54,000 rupees is what you will save if you have an annual income of 50 lakh rupees. And if you're like Anand and Maria, if you have a 1 crore annual income, you save about 60,000 rupees. You end up in the old tax regime, you would pay 31.32 lakh rupees as tax. In the new tax regime that was announced today, as for the new slabs, you will pay 30.72 lakh rupees. So a saving of about 60,000 rupees if you're in the top earning bracket.
The top 3 or 4 stacks show what we earn. His income slab is not mentioned in the graphic. But what we want to do is clock it and then also push it out on all our social media platforms, because this is something that everybody is going to see कि मुझे कितना मिलेगा. Maria.
Okay, now joining me are the 2 political heavyweights of Indian politics. Jay Panda, BJP National Vice President, is joining me, and I can see Dr. Shashi Tharoor, Congress MP. Really appreciate your time. Dr. Tharoor, you have been demanding that the education budget be hiked. The Congress says defense budget should have been hiked and the health expenditure should have been hiked as well. So the good news for you is that the defense budget has been hiked by 6%, education by 13% and health by 15%. So will you compliment Nirmala Sitharaman today?
Oh, listen, as far as the capital outlay in defense is concerned, the hike is somewhat less than you've suggested. In fact, it doesn't take into account inflation. But when it comes to health and education, yes, I'm reasonably happy with the allocations. I might add, however, as Mr. Chidambaram pointed out in the Congress press conference, part of the difficulty with this government is there is a gap between allocations and actual expenditure. We've been hearing a lot about capital expenditure. We heard Zaka talking about how it's a capex budget. The truth is that last year, they also had increased capex allocations, but they spent 22,000 crores less than they allocated. So will they be able to spend the money they're planning to extend to allocate more? We don't know. Ultimately, drawing up targets and announcing objectives is one thing, fulfilling them is another. And the government's track record over the last 8 or 9 years in fulfilling the announced goals has been less than desirable.
Okay, Mr. Panda, your opening statement here. The charge coming from the Congress and other political opponents of yours is that you overpromise and underdeliver.
First of all, I would like to thank Shashi for his graciousness in acknowledging at least some parts of the budget, which he appreciates. But let me counter some of the other aspects. This is a massive gear shift forward, because if you see on the infrastructure front, 33% rise to 10 lakh crores is just mammoth. And you know, this actually is a tripling over last 3 years, because 3 years ago, the capex budget for infrastructure was 3.5 lakh crores. Then it went up to 5.5 lakh crores, and it went up to 7.5 lakh crores last year. And now that's gone up to 10 lakh crores. And the reality is that we have proven, the Modi government has proven implementation in all of this. If you compare to the budgetary estimate and the actual implementation, we've achieved very close to what was committed, very, very minor shortcomings that Shashi is talking about. So there is a track record of not only promising, but also implementing.
Okay,
you've seen the same thing in railways, and this year sees the largest allocation for railways ever,
yes,
and so on and so forth.
Yes, Jay Panda, one charge, of course, is that you haven't really put out a roadmap for employment generation and employment creation. You know, increasing outlay in various sector may be appropriate and the way forward, but what about Naukri?
You know, employment comes from these outlays and from the implementation of the outlays. Again, I point out that if you look at the last 3 years, the reason India is today being celebrated, the Indian economy is being celebrated around the World, the World Bank, the IMF, everybody points out as the sole shining light of the global economy, is because the government has been fiscally prudent and has demonstrated its ability to implement all these allocations, all these outlays. I mentioned about infrastructure, I mentioned about railways. This year we have the highest ever budget for education. This year we have the highest ever budget for health. Now, this is how jobs get created. And jobs don't get created by just giving handouts. And if you look at the data coming out over the past several months, this is getting vindicated. You're getting jobs figures that are notching up more than 1 million jobs a month, which has always been the target for India. And this doesn't happen out of the blue. It doesn't happen in a vacuum. It happens because of these massive layouts. Now, there's another 50 new airports and heliports and waterways that are going to be developed just this year alone, on top of everything that has been invested in the last few years. So these are all creating jobs, and you can see that. Jobs has always been a challenge in India. The recent figures coming on top of these investments over the last several years is very promising.
Okay, Dr. Tharoor, in a post-pandemic era, we had heard a lot from opposition leaders, all of them presenting a doomsday scenario for India, saying that, inflation will jump, there'll be joblessness, massive joblessness. But whatever said and done, the IMF and all the world bodies are saying certainly that India is the bright spot on the otherwise very doomsday kind of a scenario as far as global economy is concerned. So, India rising from 10th to the 5th largest in the world in the past 9 years, that's certainly something that you'll compliment again.
Yeah, though I must admit that that's a prediction that we frankly have been hearing even since UPA was in power. So we have fulfilled a prediction which was very much on the cards given natural growth in our economy. But let me come back to the specific points you and Jay made, Maria. First, on the question of unemployment. We have, unfortunately, as of December 2022, an incredibly high unemployment rate at 8.3%, according to the CMIE. And our youth unemployment is colossal. That is, young people between 19 to 29 is up at 16%, which is simply astonishing. It's even worse in my state of Kerala, where it's 40% youth unemployment. And the problem is many of these are educated and skilled people who don't have jobs. So that's a very serious problem. Unemployment is something that has not actually been tackled directly. It was not even mentioned in the finance minister's speech. Second, I'm not at all against infrastructure development. I think it's great to see good progress being made in infrastructure, but there's also a question of priorities. At whose expense is this coming? You look at the budget carefully, you find Munrega slashed to record low levels of 60,000 crores, when last year, the 89,000 crores allotted after the supplementary demands were made by the ministry were not found enough. So knowing that the money they had for Munrega was not enough to cope with demand, how can they actually continue to slash it further? And that too by such a large cut, 33% cut down to 60,000. Similarly, we're seeing significant cuts in the Ministry of Women and Child Development. We're seeing cuts in the Integrated Child Development Scheme. In the Ministry of Minority Affairs, which has gone from 5,000 crores, I beg your pardon, to 3,000 crores or less than 3,100 crores. Ministry of Labour has been hacked. So somehow the priorities of the government are not at all towards the most vulnerable, towards the
But
poorest.
Dr. Tharoor, won't you say that there's repurposing or understanding of a new kind of constituency, the Dalits, the tribals, the OBC bloc? Because if you look at Prime Minister Awas Yojana, which has been hiked by 66% to now 79,000 crore, 1.7 million homeless residents, mostly from Dalit, tribal and OBC bloc, are benefiting from it. So the government clearly has also shown a roadmap for 2024. They are preparing for it, sir.
Look, we can show you speeches from the government that were pledging to eliminate homelessness 4 years ago, 3 years ago. I mean, the fact is that they are behind their own targets. But okay, let's hope they can implement it. We all want every Indian to have a roof over his head. One more thing that Jay talked about, the capex outlay going up to 10 lakh crore rupees. The fact is many of the state governments are complaining that this has come at the cost of a reduction in grants to states, which have basically been replaced with interest-free loans. So it's kind of a magic exercise. You're converting grants to loans, you're converting revenue spending to capital investment, and that's how you're able to show a dramatic increase in capital investments. It doesn't actually address the real problems that state governments are facing, according to
Zaka, you have a question for Jay Panda?
Yeah, I do. I think one of the things that the BJP needs to sort of come to terms with, and this has been a problem for a number of years now, the highest amount of revenues that the government spends on is actually on interest payments. If you look at it, It's 20 rupees for every 100 rupees of taxes that the government earns. 20 rupees goes into just debt financing. So 10 lakh crores, the headline figure is great. And I said this at the top as well. The fact that she's managed to do this with the fiscal glide path at 6.4 this year, at 4.5 eventually in 25-26, 5.9 next year, that is commendable. But the interest component, debt servicing, Jay Panda, how does government plan to bring that down? Because that is not even productive expenditure, as it were.
So, first of all, again, the 10 lakh crores in capex must be seen in context. It's not plucked out of thin air. It comes on 3 years of solid growth. 3.5 lakh crores 3 years ago, 5.5 lakh crores 2 years ago, 7.5 lakh crores this current year. And so it is a demonstration of actual ability to implement. Now, as far as interest servicing, you will recognize that considering what the world economy has gone through post-pandemic, most countries' economies are in a fiscal catastrophe. You've seen the situation of countries in our own neighborhood, but that's also the same thing in developed economies around the world. So considering all of that, I think the government has done a very good job of fiscal management. I would also like to address something else. You know, Shashi has a pet peeve about Manrega, and he brings it up every year. I want to try and put an end to this. As everybody is aware, Manrega is a demand-driven program, and the demand for it will be met. The budgetary estimates are based on the fact that there is massive investment happening, which is, you know, the typical client for Manrega, the rural Indian who wants a sure job, is going to get jobs anyway because of the massive construction that's going on. You know, you just mentioned the 2/3 increase in PM Awas Yojana. Who's going to work on building those homes? The very same people who would have been working on Manrega. Now, similarly, when people quib about, let's say, the health budget, for instance, they take it out of context. They don't take into account the 137 new nursing colleges that are going to be put up this year alone. Now, just think about that. 137 new nursing colleges is massive. So, you know, this budget is the one reason it is win-win. I want your viewers to just think about this for a moment, because for 9 years, Prime Minister Modi and his finance ministers, the late Arun Jaitley and Nirmala Sitharaman ji, have taken very tough decisions. It wasn't easy to implement GST. It has been smoothed out, and now month after month we keep getting record collections. That is why 35,000 crores of net relief can be given to taxpayers. The middle class is exultant because this is possible. So we have the fastest growing economy. We have the best managed fisc. We have inflation far better under control than almost every other country, and yet the economy is able to afford tax relief for Indian taxpayers. I think that's something that we ought to cheer about.
Okay.
So could I just offer
yes, Dr. Tharoor.
To what Jay just said. Number one, on the question of demand for Manrega, I'm sorry to say he's wrong. I've checked the latest figures, and while demand has gone down slightly compared to the pandemic years, obviously much less work was happening, it is still higher than pre-pandemic levels. The current rate of demand is estimated at 21% higher demand than in the pre-pandemic years. And the fact is that requires a higher allocation. This government has been told by experts that the current level of demand warrants a 1.4 lakh crore allocation to Manrega. Last year, they weren't able to meet the demand, and even then they came in for a supplementary demand of 89,000 crores. This year, mysteriously, they have slashed that to 60,000 when the need was for more, not for less. So that's on the actual numbers of Manrega. Secondly, on the question of interest payments, Jay glossed over the very frank question you asked him. The news is even worse than what you asked, because the truth is interest rates are going up worldwide. It's not just our problem, it's everyone's problem, conceded. But as interest rates go up, the percentage of resources that are being wasted, the 20 out of 100 rupees that you mentioned, is likely to increase further. And particularly with outstanding loans that we have no intention of paying back. And don't forget that even the capex money we're talking about is money that is going for the most part as interest-free loans to states rather than as grants to states. So there are some real issues with these numbers here. I don't think we should have the eyes of the audience glazing over with too many numbers, but the fact is that these numbers are not quite what my good friend Jay is touting them out.
Okay, a final word from you, Jay Panda, and then we end this discussion.
Well, this government has shown the true spirit of cooperative federalism because pursuant to Finance Commission recommendations, the states get a much larger share of the revenue pie in the last few years. So you can't have more of the pie going to the states and also have more grants from the center. But what the center has done, from this 10 lakh crores, 1,30,000 crores is going as 50-year interest-free loans to the states. You can't really have it better than that. And these are all for great projects. These are for building housing for policemen and women. These are for building other facilities. Now, there was earlier mentioned by Shashi about minorities and other groups of people. The reality is the Sabka Saath, Sabka Vikas philosophy that the Prime Minister has been implementing through his government can be seen. Right. You know, the 9 crore households who have got drinking water doesn't discriminate against any section of society. Everybody gets it. The 2.2 lakh crores that have been transferred digitally to farmers doesn't discriminate against farmers of any section of society. Everybody gets it. I can go on and on. So the all-inclusive attitude of this government has seen all sections of society taken forward. Extreme poverty has fallen below 1%. Now, these are things that the world is celebrating. I think we in India, including our opposition members, ought to celebrate.
All right, Dr. Shashi Tharoor and Jay Pandya, always a pleasure to have you on my shows, and for this big budget face-off, thank you so much. Of course, this will be discussed threadbare when the discussion is held on the budget. And Anand,
yes, thank you very much. But even as the politics continues, charge versus countercharge continues, there is the vision for Bharat, but there is populism. There is a certain level of eyes on the ball, that is ballot, ladies and gentlemen. Why, we tell you, look at the broad spectrum of all that's been encompassed in this budget, and if you tabulate that or compare that with the voter base or the kind of audience that we're looking at, these are critical vote bases, not just for Lok Sabha 2024, but also for the 9 states that are going to go to the ballot between now and Lok Sabha 2024. So, announcement, agriculture credit target hiked to about 20 lakh crore. The voters, 54.6% of the workforce in agriculture and allied sectors. So clearly the thrust is there. When they see real benefit to them, will they remember when they go to cast the vote? Ballot has paid dividends, this development-driven narrative for the Prime Minister and his team, and they're continuing on that path. But we need to see 2.81 crore fishermen in India, 9.74 lakh fishermen in pole-bound Karnataka, and what's been announced in the budget, investment of 6,000 crore rupees in the fisheries sector. There is also another reason, because long-term, one of our biggest pool or energy resource is going to be the ocean, and fisheries become very, very central to that entire scheme. There was huge lobbying in the WTO also to safeguard the interest of small fishermen along our coastlines. Then, if you look at let's move on to the next one. Beyond the fishermen, there is also the other sectors that have been looked at. If you look at fishermen, then there are 8.6 lakh fishermen in pole-bound Telangana, just like there were nearly 8 lakh fishermen in pole-bound Karnataka, 60 lakh fishermen in Bihar. There are 35 odd lakh fishermen, 39 lakh fishermen in Uttar Pradesh. So all these states, critical base, 32 lakh fishermen in West Bengal. So if their interests are protected via the budget, then will that also give a certain level of poll narrative and arsenal for the BJP when they go to seek their votes? You've got to decide that. Now look at this. The announcement, Vishwakarma Kaushal Samman to boost traditional artisans. This is a huge list of nearly 50 different castes, subcastes, largely from the OBC and backward caste. 6.8 million artisans in India. Majority are SC, ST, OBCs, and of course across the spectrum, women largely. Then 1.7 million homeless, mostly from Dalit, tribal and the OBC bloc. They get benefits of the PM Awas Yojana that's been enhanced to over 79,000 crore because it's reaped big dividends for them. We saw it in the Uttar Pradesh elections. Many of the beneficiaries of PMAY came back and cast the ballot for Modi and Yogi. 53,100 crore Upper Bhadra irrigation project once again focuses on farmer welfare in pole-bound Karnataka. Will this translate into the cadre using it on ground? They should. If they don't, then what's then beyond the welfare aspect, there is no benefit for the party politically. Senior citizen deposit scheme limit raised to 30 lakhs, 60 plus population stands at 103 million. Now, these are some of the salient features along with the Saptarishi pillar and the vision for 2047. There is clearly the blueprint of the road to 2024 and getting voted back into power. This is what the Finance Minister said in Parliament.
I propose to increase the rebate limit to 7 lakh in the new tax regime, the new personal income tax regime, with 6 income slabs starting from 2.5 lakh. I propose to change the tax structure in this regime by reducing the number of slabs to 5 and increasing the tax exemption limit to 3 lakhs. The new tax rates are 0 to 3 lakh, nil. 3 to 6 lakhs, 5%. 6 to 9 lakhs, 10%. 9 to 12 lakh, 15%. 12 to 15 lakhs, 20%. And above 15 lakhs, 30%. Mahila Samman Savings Certificate will be made available for a 2-year period up to March 2025. This will offer deposit facility up to 2 lakh in the name of a woman or girls for a tenor of 2 years at fixed interest rate of 7.5% with partial withdrawal option. The maximum deposit limit for senior citizens savings scheme will be enhanced from 15 lakh to 30 lakhs of rupees. The maximum deposit limit for monthly income account scheme will be enhanced from 4.5 lakh to 9 lakh for single account and from 9 lakh to 15 lakh for joint account. Pradhan Mantri Kaushal Vikas Yojana 4.0 will be launched to skill lakhs of youth within the next 3 years. On-job training, industry partnership, and alignment of courses with needs of industry will be emphasized.
Gurcharan Das, Senior Economist, and Gaurav Chaudhary, Consulting Editor of Network 18, is joining us. Gurcharan Das, I'm sure you would have seen several budgets before election, before the ballot. What makes this budget different from the rest?
Well, you know, I had 3 fears, and this budget allayed all the 3 fears. My first fear was this was a pre-election budget, and so it would be full of reveries. And I'm happy to say that it is not a populist budget. It is really continuing the trend of the last 3 budgets. This is the second fear that I had was that it would, given the volatility in the world, given the headwinds from the world, that we had to be prudent, fiscally prudent. And I had said that if she can keep the 6.4 deficit figure, fiscal deficit figure, we would be fine. But actually she's done better. She has targeted a fiscal deficit of 5.9%. And that's prudence. And finally, the fact is that it's a growth budget, and it follows the last 2 growth budgets in investment spending. I mean, a 30% increase in capital spending up to 10 lakh crores. This, you know, this we forget that the best critics have said that, oh, but what about the poor? This is an anti-poor budget. But the only sustainable way out of poverty is jobs.
Correct.
And infrastructure spending. Capital spending by the state is the best way to achieve it, because it crowds in private investment, and it creates jobs, and plus the other labor intensive sectors like housing, tourism, all these have been given allocations, and so. So I actually feel that this is a good budget.
So it's allayed a lot of your fears. Gaurav Chaudhary has been patiently waiting for nearly 90 minutes. But Zaka, quickly coming to you and then bring in Gaurav along with that. Allocations across ministries, and then we look at the job aspect. One of the things which everybody believes is government's job is not to create jobs, but to create an environment where the private sector will come in and create the jobs. That's what's supposed. So does this budget do that, and does the roadmap over the last 8-9 years do that?
So I think one of the concerns, and this has been for a few years now, is private investment cycles, so-called animal spirits, not kicking in enough. I think corporate India is in perhaps the best placed position today than perhaps in the last 3 or 4 years. Of course, 2 years of pandemic, not discounting there. But I think the question that I wanted to ask Gaurav is this, and we talk about this every budget, food and fertilizer subsidy. If you look at the allocation ministry-wise, the Ministry of Consumer Affairs and Public Distribution, which is essentially the PDS system, and chemicals and fertilizers, together account for something like 3.8 lakh crores. That is a huge burden on the exchequer. So basically for every 100 rupees that the government is spending, it is spending almost 4 rupees on just food and fertilizer subsidy alone. And I think that is a big, you've seen the fine print. I have not, Gaurav. Are you seeing anything in this budget to try and reduce that footprint? Particularly because, I think one of the talking points for this government has been, perhaps rightly also, that 80 crore people were fed during the pandemic. Now we are out of the pandemic. Is there a case to rationalize that?
I think the budget addresses that, but if you look at the fine print on the subsidy numbers, both food and fertilizer subsidies have come down, and quite significantly, in fact. And this is despite the fact that the free food grain scheme that was announced during the pandemic has now got subsumed within the Food Security Act. So that is an entitled. That's a statutory entitlement now. So it doesn't mean that the volume of free food grain subsidy is going to come down. Despite getting subsumed within the Food Security Act, the food subsidy bill has come down, or estimated to come down significantly in 23-24, which means that there is a great degree of fiscal prudence and great public finance engineering that may have taken place there to bring down the food subsidy bill, and as also the fertilizer subsidy. But also on the question of jobs, I was making this point earlier that we are talking about a 10 lakh crore figure as capital expenditure. It's actually 13.7 lakh crore because you have to account for the 3.7 lakh crore that the government is going to give as grants in aid to states for their capital expenditure. And that kind of catapults the total capital expenditure, the percentage of GDP, to 4.5% of GDP. That's quite a jump. If you look at the past time, if you do a time series analysis over the last 15 years, 2009, the total capital expenditure as a percentage of GDP was about 1.7%. And we are closing it at nearly 3 times that in 15 years, and this has been the signature characteristic of Nirmala Sitharaman's finance ministership. Capital expenditure as a percentage of GDP has significantly grown over the last 5 years, both in terms of as a percentage of GDP as well as in absolute numbers.
But the point, Gaurav, that Tharoor, for example, was making is that the state component, which is the 3 lakh odd crores, they're saying this is monies that previously we used to get as grants. Now these are 50-year interest loans, and I think there are some conditions attached this time as well.
That's right.
Is that a valid point?
That point is valid, but the point here is that the conditions attached are conditions related to reforms that they have to undertake. Now, you cannot expect state governments not to, expect the center to actually fill in the coffers of the state government, and there is no reforms that they undertake, which is, I think, a fair demand that the center has been making over the last 2 years. But be that as it may, Gurcharan Das made the point of crowding in, and that is something that the finance minister actually mentions in a speech, that effective capital expenditure of 13.7 lakh crore is actually going to crowd in private investment. And crowding in takes place when the government does the heavy lifting and front loads a lot of investment in sectors, particularly infrastructure that have strong economic multipliers, particularly in spinning jobs and multiplying income, and also releasing secondary round positive impacts in intermediate industries such as cement and steel. And that is the assumption. Now, that assumption that will always play out with a time lag in the real economy. That seems to be playing out because there is now evidence to show that many in the private sector, large corporates, are actually have committed large investments over the next few quarters, which means the crowding out phenomenon, which is it's a textbook assumption, seems to be playing out in the Indian economy. But there are a few caveats that we need to flag. The finance minister has also penciled in a 10.5% nominal GDP growth. The budget doesn't put out real or inflation-adjusted GDP growth. Now, if you assume that inflation, the current inflation trends persist, so you're probably looking at a GDP deflator or an overall inflation rate of about 4.5%. That would mean that in 23-24, our real GDP growth would be about 6%, which means about towards the lower end of the economic survey projections.
Sure. But what is stopping the corporate world or the private sector from bringing out the animal in them, Gurcharan Dasji? 8 years of the story, despite the pandemic and 2 black swan events, we got steady growth rate amongst recessionary trends globally, yet the corporates seem a little edgy or iffy. Are they going to step out now after this budget? Step up?
Well, I think this is a function of time. That is to say that, one of the reasons why a businessman is not investing is because he does not need extra capacity. And so we had weak demand even before COVID. And there was this issue. Another reason why they were not investing was the fact of the heavy NPAs.
Right.
And now that problem has been solved. That the banks, the twin balance sheet problem, that we've been dogged with that for a decade almost.
Yeah.
And I think that problem now is behind us. So actually now the conditions, it's hard for me to say why they were not investing overall, but this morning to hear some of the people from CII all saying, well, this is the moment for businessmen to invest, the animal spirits to flow. And demand is picking up.
Quite a lot of them, Gurcharanji, with due respect, quite a lot of them said the same thing. It's like deja vu for me, because last year also we heard similar tones coming in from the industry, but did it actually translate on ground? Did it actually translate, or is Gaurav Chaudhary till the time the government is able to push through with labour reforms and also push through with the agri reforms? These are the 2 blocks where they've not yet been able to push through. Ji, Gurcharanji and then Gaurav.
Yeah, no, this is a very good point. Yeah, very quickly. This is a very good point you're making. The key difference, I think, now is that we are beginning to see demand normalizing. The last 2 years have been lost. The COVID years. Now and therefore, in some ways, the infrastructure spending could not be fully realized, could not really relate to immediate additional demand.
Okay.
And so
just hold on to your thoughts, sir. Gaurav, stay with us, because we are now being joined by Railways and IT Minister Ashwini Vaishnav. Mr. Vaishnav, really appreciate your time. The capital outlay of 2.4 lakh that has been provided for the railways. This is the highest ever outlay and is 9 times the outlay made in 2013, 2014. What does it mean for job creation, sir?
I would like to thank Honorable Prime Minister for giving record allocation to railways, and this will really make a very big difference in passenger experience, in logistics for the country, in terms of job creation. See, 10 years back, railway was laying just about 4 kilometers new tracks every day. That was nothing compared to the need, nothing compared to the infrastructure which this large country needs, right? Today we are at 12 kilometers a day. So this is a huge significant jump, and with this kind of capital allocation that we have received today, we should be able to cross 16 kilometers a day in the next fiscal. Wow. Simultaneously, we have taken up, under Prime Minister's clear vision, we have taken up 1,275 stations for complete redevelopment to world-class standards.
That's right.
So these include very large stations like New Delhi, Chhatrapati Shivaji Terminal, and many medium stations and many small stations also. So throughout the country, the passenger experience changes with this. Then comes the Vande Bharat train. The first 8 trains are a resounding success. People have accepted it very well. The occupancy rate is more than 100% in most of the networks, most of the legs. So we are going to ramp up manufacturing of Vande Bharat trains significantly this year. Currently it is manufactured at ICF Chennai, one location. This year we will, after this budgetary allocation, we would be ramping up to Sonipat in Haryana, in Uttar Pradesh, as well as in Maharashtra. Latur, Maharashtra, Raebareli, Uttar Pradesh. So that way Vande Bharats will be manufactured at 4 locations. And we are also coming up with a hydrogen train. Again, the focus of the budget is on green growth.
That's right.
So in that spirit, we are developing, Prime Minister gave us the target that hydrogen train should be designed in India, developed in India, made in India. So by December 2023, we will be rolling out hydrogen trains.
Congratulations on that, certainly. But Mr. Vaishnav, Railways is the biggest employer in this country. The question that is being asked by analysts and also your political opponents is if this increase in outlay will translate into job creation.
Definitely it will. I would like to put some facts here. In the last 8 years, Railways has given 3,74,000 direct employment to India's youth within the railway department itself. Right now we are undergoing a process by which we will be employing 1,45,000 people. Listen, in the state of Rajasthan, every 2 to 3 months when they set up any exam for recruitment, there are paper leaks, there are all kinds of problems.
That's right.
Railways, in Prime Minister's leadership, has completed this process in an absolutely transparent and flawless way. More than 1 crore applicants were there for each of the categories. So there were a total of 2 crore applicants in the 2 classes, 2 sets of categories, and 2 crore applicants absolutely flawlessly, no complaints, completed. And now we will be giving, this is just within Railways. Now number of projects which are there, number of supply chain stabilization and ramping up which is happening, this itself, the manufacturing of railway components, manufacturing of railway equipment, this itself in our estimate is creating new employment of close to 40 lakh in this financial year, in the coming financial year. So this is significant growth in the railway family. I mean, on the one hand, much better facilities, much better infrastructure.
That's right.
Significantly better, and on the other hand, so much employment.
Yes. Sir, you know, you are right, because as a reporter who has covered railways as a beat, there's a significant shift in the manner in which the Rail Bhavan is functioning under your leadership. My question to you is, just recently you had put out certain pictures of fencing that is happening around, along the route of Vande Bharat. How many more kilometers and which are these routes? And, traditionally we used to have railway budget and the general budget separate. The budgets have been, it is one budget now. That happened several years ago. But sir, the question then is, what about new trains? वो कैसे पता चलेगा कितनी नई trains आ रही हैं?
See, everything is very transparently put in the detailed demand for grants. The fencing that we have adopted is a very nice design. A lot of thought has gone in it. The idea was that no large cattle should be able to come over to the tracks, and simultaneously it should provide the flexibility because our tracks are on surface. They are not elevated or they are not on very large embankments. So very carefully thought through design has been made. We have started doing it on the Mumbai-Ahmedabad section. Very soon we will be doing it for about 1,500 kilometers, and this is just one of the steps. There are multiple steps that we are taking under Prime Minister's guidance. We are going for automatic signalling. For Kavach, last year we took 3,000 kilometers. This year we are taking up 5,000 kilometers. Then we are going for double distance signaling. All those steps, automatic electronic interlocking for the stations, central control system, all these things are helping us upgrade the tracks from 70-80 kmph capacity, which was there 10 years ago, now to 100 plus universally, 130 and 160 in many sections, and hopefully within 2 to 3 years time, most of the big cities would be connected by tracks which are capable of doing 160 kmph. See, I recently traveled from Davos to Zurich in train.
That's right.
And the quality of ride that we have in Vande Bharat, that is comparable or a notch better than what we find in the most developed countries. The sound levels again comparable and a notch better. Acceleration certainly better. So today we have used India's talent and the Prime Minister's clear guidance, India's talent to develop world-class manufacturing, and over a period of next 3 years, we should be looking at railways as a major exporter of technology and products.
My last question to you, Mr. Vaishnav. Last time around, we heard a lot about PPP, that even in the development of railway stations, there would be some private players that will be brought in. What has been the response like? Because if we look at the 7 priorities of this budget or Saptarishi, the focus certainly is on investment as well.
See, railways is a very complex organization. There are lot of interplay between signaling system, the train control system, the stations, the tracks, the electrical system, then the rolling stock itself. It's very complex, and all over the world railways are practically run by governments only. Even if there are some places companies have been created, but those companies are basically like government companies or extension of government organizations. That is the same case here, and also we have a very large social obligation. On passenger travel alone, we give 51,000 crore of subsidy. Then fertilizer is subsidized. Then food grain movement is subsidized. Salt is subsidized. Practically a large number of activities are subsidized. So all those social obligations are not really amenable to PPP mode. And as a policy decision, government has taken a very clear decision that railways is not going to be privatized.
All right. Thank you so much for your time, Ashwini Vaishnav, Railways and IT Minister, giving his thought on this outlay being increased, the highest ever. That is the big number that is coming for the Indian Railways. Several more newsmakers lined up for you over the next 1.5 hours. We'll be joined by them, with them in just a bit. Stay with us.
These 1,000 crore in indirect taxes will be foregone, while revenue of about 3,000 crore will be additionally mobilized. Thus, the total revenue foregone is about 35,000 crores annually. Honorable Speaker, sir, with these words, I commend the budget to this August House. One hour, 25 minutes.
Item number 1, माननीय item number 2, श्रीमती निर्मला सीतारमण जी.
Sir, with your permission, I lay on the table of the following statements. Under Section 3(1) of the Fiscal Responsibility Budget Management Act 2003, 1. Medium-term fiscal policy cum fiscal policy strategy statement and macroeconomic framework statement. Now I come to what everyone is waiting for. Personal income tax. I have 5 major announcements to make in this regard. These primarily benefit our hard-working middle class. The first one concerns rebate. Currently, those with income up to 5 lakh do not pay any tax do not pay any income tax in both old and new regimes. I propose to increase the rebate limit to 7 lakhs in the I propose to increase the rebate limit to 7 lakh in the new tax regime. Thus, persons in the new tax regime with income up to 7 lakhs will not have to pay any tax at all. The second proposal relates to middle-class individuals. I had introduced in the year 2020 the new personal income tax regime with 6 income slabs starting from 2.5 lakh. I propose to change the tax structure in this regime by reducing the number of slabs to 5 and increasing the tax exemption limit to 3 lakhs.
Samarth, Samriddh, Sampann Bharat by 2047. It's a budget which is Sabka Budget. Joining us now on our coverage of Budget 2023 is Union Minister Smriti Irani ji, Women and Child Development Minister and also Minister of Minority Affairs. Smriti ji, namaste. This is Anand here. Thank you very much. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Sorry.
Smriti ji, we are live and I want to understand, does this budget meet your personal expectations?
Of course, and more. I think, as been enunciated by the Finance Minister, this is the Amrit Kal budget, a budget that not only gives you a promise to address the issues of the present, also correct mistakes of the past, but it's also a budget that helps you build the future of India. As far as I'm concerned, I'm elated that the Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana is seeing a jump of 66%. I am elated with the special savings instruments which has been pronounced by the Finance Minister for Women. I am extremely grateful for the fiscal space given for the elderly in our country. I am extremely grateful that the budget is humane enough to consider the needs of reading and children and young adolescents, and the National Digital Library and the complementary infrastructure that is to be created for the same in all states. I'm equally excited about the Center of Excellence that has been pronounced for artificial intelligence so that the future workforce can be ready. I'm equally grateful that this budget, in terms of its enhanced support for not only the defense sector but the agricultural credit fund and the special impetus to animal husbandry and fisheries, means more opportunities for women. But one of the biggest opportunities for women is what has been pronounced for the self-help groups across our country. 81 lakh self-help groups, 9 crore female members of the same now will be organized in clusters so that their entrepreneurial prowess can be maximized, and that will have a grassroots impact not only from the perspective of economy but also from the perspective of health and education for families. It is a budget for a better tomorrow.
You've elucidated it beautifully, but there are those who are taking jibes at the government saying that the budgets for women and child development, the budget for minority affairs have been slashed.
Jibes and pot shots are No, I'm sure the ones who are taking pot shots and jibes at it are the members of the opposition, and that makes me equally satisfied, because if the opposition was smiling this evening, Mr. Narasimhan, then I think I'd be in a bit of trouble.
Yes.
But in this case, let me also ask you, why have the budgets been slashed? Would you look at it as slashing of budgets in your respective ministries, or would you look at it as repurposing and them indirectly benefiting?
Which ministry would you allude to?
The Minority Affairs Ministry, there is an allegation that the budgetary allocations of Minority Affairs has come down.
Is your premise Is your premise that the government works for minorities only through the Minority Affairs Ministry? I think one of the greatest disservice we are doing to the minority community is to indicate to them that there is only one ministry dedicated to them and their needs. When the Prime Minister says that capital expenditure will go up and infrastructure spend is increased by 33% and now 10 lakh crore rupees will be spent, roads will be built, airports will be built, does that not help every community, including the minority community? When the Prime Minister speaks of his vision of building new medical colleges, does that not include members of the minority community? When we talk about the new education policy and the gender inclusion funds, does that not include the minorities of the country? The fact that every facet of government today is servicing every community is what is the strength of India. So when the Finance Minister pronounced a whole network and framework for enhancing the capacity of Vishwakarma and especially our artisans, which community do you think they belong to?
That's across the board, but the other question to you is sickle cell anemia has been highlighted. There was the challenge of malnourishment, which was addressed
I'm really grateful, Mr. Narasimhan. I'm very grateful, Mr. Narasimhan. In all my press interactions today, you're the only anchor who's brought up the issue of sickle cell anemia. The fact that it affects our tribal population, particularly 7 crore people in this country, and this is one of the most ambitious targets that the government has ever set in the history of our democracy, speaks volume that this budget is not only an economic instrument, but also an instrument for change and an instrument that is grounded in humanity. So I'm grateful particularly that as an anchor, you placed attention to the sickle cell anemia pronouncement of the Finance Minister.
Because it stood out. It stood out because this does not come under common cognizance, and when the Finance Minister spoke about it, it stood out. But along with setting out a roadmap for Bharat in 2047, a Samarth Bharat, a Sampanna Bharat, a Samriddh Bharat, as the Prime Minister said, there is also seems to be an eye on Lok Sabha 2024. A lot of the constituencies that seem to be beneficiaries of this budget.
The Prime Minister has always said.
There is an element of populism.
The Prime Minister has always said. I'm sorry, I'm cutting you.
No, please go ahead.
No,
You're
I'm
most
sorry,
welcome
I'm cutting you through this particular pronouncement of yours. But the Prime Minister has always steadfastly maintained this will not be the first ever Lok Sabha elections that we'll go to with him as Prime Minister. This is our second. Which we will win, and I am grateful that you have highlighted this particular question with regards to the Prime Minister's leadership, because he's had budgets before which has been pronounced by his Finance Minister. He has never looked at any budget from the perspective of how to get more votes. I think that is why he has the overwhelming support of citizens of this country. Every citizen knew, and this was tested even during the pandemic, every citizen knew in our country that this is a Prime Minister that prioritizes India's needs and not his political needs.
My final question, Smriti Irani ji, what's going to be your thrust? What's the mandate for you as per this budget going forward?
Well, if you ask me as a citizen, I am the daughter of 2 senior citizens, hence I'm extremely grateful that pronouncements have been made for senior citizens today. I'm a mother of 2 girls, and I myself look forward to the savings instruments, particularly for women. In fact, I would appeal to all women that this is an opportunity to not only enhance our savings capacity, but also benefit from the time window that the Finance Minister has pronounced. That nutrition is a subject which is very close to the Prime Minister's heart, where 18 ministries come together under portion today has been supplemented with enterprise, where the Finance Minister speaks about Shri Anna, which means the millets, and the capacity for India to enhance our export potential in this segment. What is particularly interesting also is the details to which the budget went with regards to the agricultural credit fund and the impetus that is to be given not only to fisheries, not only to animal husbandry, but there's a complementary stance taken in setting up of Center of Excellence for Artificial Intelligence. So we are getting future ready, but we are also ensuring that we leverage our inherent talent. That the cooperative ministry was first brought into existence under Prime Minister Modi's leadership is something which is a silent revolution that is brewing in our country. The complementary support given by the Finance Minister today is worth cheering for.
The cooperatives that you spoke about, it's a huge step towards women empowerment, because a large number of cooperatives across our country are also championed by women, powered by women. So here's to that 51% which deserves.
But they are also
its due
champions
right.
of agriculture.
Yes, they are.
So the finance minister today has not only given a big ticket salute to infrastructure, but she has also fueled the capacity of Indian enterprise at the grassroots.
Smriti Irani, thank you very, very much for speaking with us.
Thank you.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, Budget 2023, it set the tone. It set the tone for Bharat's Amrit Kal, and like the Prime Minister said, a Samriddh, Sampann, Samarth Bharat.
I propose to increase the rebate limit to 7 lakh in the new tax regime. Thus, persons in the new tax regime with income up to 7 lakh will not have to pay any tax at all.
Plenty of highlights in this budget, ladies and gentlemen, from a surge in capex to, of course, a surge in the investments or allocations for Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana, but more importantly, the will to connect all of Bharat. Let's go across straight to Union Minister Piyush Goyal ji, who's joining us. Piyush ji, namaste. This is Anand Narasimhan here. Can you hear me, Piyush ji?
I'm getting in fits and starts. I don't know.
Fits and starts. We'll try and fix that audio. We'll stay with you, sir. I'm just going to check if you can hear me now. Can you hear me, Piyush ji? Namaste. Anand here.
Yeah, now I can. Please go ahead.
Yeah.
Please go ahead.
There was a roadmap for Gati Shakti. Why we last met when you launched the entire logistics blueprint. In this budget, it just looks like you're taking great steps towards achieving that goal. Your assessment. Let's start from there. Road, rail, and of course the ports.
I lost you after the goal.
Can you hear me now?
I lost you again, my
Piyush ji, can you hear me?
But on Gati Shakti, I can only say if you can hear me.
Yes, I can hear you.
Now
Go
I
ahead,
can
please.
hear you.
Yeah, please continue, sir. It's about connecting
I was
India,
only saying
the
that on
Bharatmala
Gati
project.
Shakti, I can say it's a transformational initiative. The way Prime Minister Narendra Modi has conceptualized Gati Shakti, it's completely changed the way we plan our projects, the way we execute our projects, monitor our projects, and finally implement them successfully to serve the people. For example, using Gati Shakti, we have identified over 155 critical bottlenecks which if plugged can actually make logistics costs significantly lower. Then we were able to find that almost 42 of them are at different stages of approval or implementation, so we have the funds for that. About 100 projects we identified, which cost about 75,000 crores, which if we can quickly implement, it will have a transformational impact on our logistics costs and ease of doing business for both domestic and export business. Honorable Finance Minister has been gracious enough under the leadership of Prime Minister Narendra Modi to provide 75,000 crores so that these 100 or so projects can be quickly taken up and will quickly give results to the common man, to businessmen, to the people at large, and help upgrade the infrastructure for logistics in the country. So Gati Shakti is truly giving us remarkable results. Project planning has become smarter, better, implementation is faster, and I'm sure in the years to come, every rupee spent on infrastructure will truly have a big impact on India's competitiveness and India's ability to keep our wheels of the economy moving better and faster.
Will this budget bring out the animal within the private sector? Because it's important to create jobs. It's important to go ahead and grasp this growth story. we need the private sector to bring out the animal instinct in them.
No.
Piyush, can you hear me now?
Connection, my friend, is...
I'm going to try again. Can you hear me now, Piyush? Is it better?
It's again in fits and starts. There's something wrong in your connection.
The private, if you can hear me, the private sector, will it come out and bring out its animal instinct? Will it be aggressive now, after this budget?
Well, private sector always looks for indication of demand. And if you recall, way back in 2014, when we had just come in, the banks were in a bad shape, having lent money left, right and center to all sorts of wrong companies and ineligible projects also. At that time, we also had a lot of demand surplus capacities, which was far greater than the demand. And therefore, we saw a little slow implementation of projects. I'm happy to share with you that currently, all private sector corporations, both in goods and in services, report that they are finding their capacity utilization has improved significantly. Post-COVID, the demand has been good, their sales have been robust, their international engagement and exports have grown manifold, and I am quite confident that with this budget, which has given a big boost to infra spending and capex spending, the private sector investments will also get a leg up.
Piyush ji, good evening. This is Zaka Jacob here. Just a question on one of your ministries about import and export numbers. We had a record year in 21-22, $420 billion of exports. This year, 22-23, April to November, it's about just a shade under 300 billion. I want to know your outlook, particularly because we are seeing sort of recessionary tendencies in Western markets and so on. What is your outlook for how we will end fiscal year 2022-23 in terms of our export numbers?
Outlook for?
Piyush ji, export numbers. Zaka wants to know the outlook as far as export numbers.
Well, I think last year we did about $674 billion, both goods and services. My own sense is this year will be a robust growth combined between goods and services of about at least in double digits. And services, of course, are growing faster than merchandise. It's a strength area which we are really catapulting us to one of the top service exporters in the world. And on merchandise also, we are seeing sluggishness in world markets, particularly with high inventory buildup, shortage of foreign exchange in some of the developing countries who are large importers of Indian goods. But overall, we still believe our exports will be in positive territory.
Global recessionary trends, will it hurt us?
It will hurt us on the merchandise side. On the services side, we are very confident that we'll continue to grow very, very rapidly.
PLIs should have been incentivized. The ambit should have been opened. Agree, disagree? Feedback from the corporate sector.
It is open. It is open. I disagree with the expectation or understanding some of the journalists or people had. PLI has already been adequately funded in this budget. It has been approved in the past budgets for 1,97,000 crores in industry and 76,000 crore for semiconductor. We already have the approval and the funding. Wherever a specific sector comes up with a scheme and with the guidelines, we go to the cabinet and the cabinet is authorized to approve it. It was never expected to be a part of this budget. It is already a part of earlier budgets and fully approved.
Final question,
We'll keep
Piyush
hearing about announcements in the days to come.
Piyush ji, final question. Opposition jibe is this government over-promises, under-delivers.
Well, I would like to ask them whether we have delivered or not 3.5 crore approximately houses for the needy and deserving. Whether they recognize that what they failed to do for so many years, the Modi government did by providing 11.27 crore toilets so that no sister or mother or daughter ever has to face the indignity of going to a field or in the open for their daily needs. Whether 3.5 crore, 3.25 crore homes which are deprived of electricity received a free electricity connection. How 9.5 crore homes got a free Ujjwala LPG gas connection, because of which they are saved from 400 cigarettes every day. Whether 46 crore Jan-Dhan accounts were opened or not. Whether for 28 months the people of India, the 80 crore poor and lower middle class families, 80 crore people got twice their entitlement under the Pradhan Mantri Garib Kalyan Ann Yojana. And now, from 1st January, they do not have to pay anything for their food entitlement under food security. It's totally free. Central government will spend 2 lakh crores on it. Whether 50 crore of our brothers and sisters are eligible for free healthcare or not. I can keep listing out the many achievements. And this is a government that performs. It's an action-oriented government. We under-promise and over-deliver. And I think that is the angst of the opposition. And that is why the people of India continue to bless Prime Minister Narendra Modi and the BJP for the good work that Prime Minister Modi is doing.
Piyush Goyal ji, thank you very much for your time. Look forward to speaking with you at length very, very soon. Thank you. Namaste.
Namaste. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, let's quickly get a check on what are the key highlights of this budget 2023. As Shri Piyush Goyal just said, that contrary to what the opposition claims, we actually under-promise and over-deliver. Why is it that the world is looking at a growth trend only in India when all around us it's recessionary trends? Are there concerns? Yes. Is our rupee holding up against the dollar as strongly as it should? It's not. But there is a focus of growth via capital spending. There is no tax up to a salary of 7 lakh rupees. So that means if you draw 7 lakhs, you don't pay taxes. Above that, you get into the slabs. Focus on fiscal prudence, tax savings for young and retired, 10 lakh crore capex target, and of course, the nudge towards the new tax regime. Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman has said the new tax regime will now be the default tax regime. And does the new tax regime encourage spending more than saving? We will speak about that. But look at the outlays. Out of the 13.5 lakh crore overall gross capex that is there, 2.4 lakh crore outlay is for railways. The Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana gets an additional outlay hiked by about 66%. And of course, there is the 35,000 crore that's been allocated for green energy transition. Even the customs duty on ethanol has been reduced. Sugarcane producers, sugarcane farmers will get a huge boost, ladies and gentlemen, because of the focus on flex fuel. Hydrogen-based fuel is big. That thrust is big. So not just electric vehicles, you're going to look at alternative fuel vehicles very soon. Hydrogen-based train has been committed right on our show by Ashwini Vaishnaw by December 2023. 15,000 crore allocation for the tribal community. Not a populist budget, they say, but is there everything for those who will believe if they are delivered, they will go back and give a vote of confidence for the Modi Sarkar. Revamp credit guarantee for MSMEs. All of this, but more importantly, it's the tax game again. So plenty of budget buzzwords. Which is the biggest buzzword?
As expected, you would imagine that the big word is Vikas or development. 37 times the finance minister mentioned development in her speech. It was an hour and 20-25 minutes or so. Manufacturing also found a huge number of sort of presence in her speech. 21 times she used the word manufacturing. Rural was only 8, jobs 10, education 10. Agriculture, there was a big thrust on agriculture. The credit outlay has been 20 lakh crores. 26 times the finance minister talked about agriculture. If you come to this side, again, a big pivot on green energy. Anand was talking about it, 35,000 crores for the energy transition from fossil fuels to renewables. So 23 times green was mentioned. Digital, again, huge thrust for the government, whether it's in digital payments, whether it is, of course, the digital library, the National Digital Library that they will be establishing. Infrastructure, big one, because the capex has gone through the roof to 10 lakh crores. So 27 times the finance minister talked about infrastructure and exemption. This is in the context of income tax, of course, the finance minister mentioning that word 23 times. So clearly, this is the budget buzzwords or the word cloud of the finance minister's speech. It was an hour and 25 minutes long this time around. She holds the record, by the way, I think it was two budgets back when she spoke for over 2 hours. In fact, couldn't complete her speech. I just want to quickly run through that capex figure as well, because I think it's important to point the direction and the degree of the increase in the capex outlay that's been done. Just 3 years ago, it was under 5 lakh crores, 4.39 lakh crores. And look at the capital expenditure outlay for this particular fiscal. It's 10 lakh crores. It's the highest that India has ever allocated in any union budget. And the transformation has happened over the last 3 years in the middle of the pandemic. 2021 is when we went into the pandemic, 4.39 lakh crores. We're now coming out of the pandemic. It is more than doubled to 10 lakh crores. Yes, the criticism has been they've taken allocations from other, whether it is ministries, other programs. Manrega has seen a significant cut. But this is one thing that economists will continue to debate, that capital expenditure is productive expenditure. It results manifestly in not just your physical infrastructure getting better, but also it will result manifestly in jobs being created. So this is going to be the one big headline, and this is why the markets also reacted very positively to the budget.
And Zaka, you were talking about tax reforms. So the big takeaway, what is the kind of relief that the Aam Aadmi is getting?
There seems to be a lot of confusion between the exemption and also the rebate. So 7 lakhs and 10 lakhs, where is the difference there? So if I draw 7 lakhs, I don't pay any tax.
You're paying zero tax. So let's say you're earning 8 lakhs. Okay, you're getting 1 lakh more than the free slab, as it were. So 7 lakhs, no taxes, but 7 lakh, 1 rupee, you start paying taxes. Let's say you're earning 8 lakh rupees in a year. So then you automatically come into the new slabs. So the first 3 lakhs of your income, there is no income tax that you pay. Between 3 lakhs and 6 lakhs, that's 3 lakh rupees, you will pay at 5%. So that will be 15,000 rupees per annum. The remaining 6 to 8 lakhs, which is 2 lakh rupees, you will pay at 10%, which would be about what? 40,000 rupees. So in effect, you will be paying 55,000 rupees as tax on an 8 lakh income. So on and so forth. So if you're earning, let's say, 10 lakhs, then the first 3 lakhs, there's no tax. The next 3 lakhs, it'll be taxed at 5%. The next 3 lakhs after that at 10%. And the 2 lakhs after that, you will be taxed at 15%. So in terms of, brass tacks, if you were to look at how much you will save, here is a ballpark figure of how much you could potentially save. If you're in the 10 lakh income bracket, your saving would be 23,000 rupees, because your current tax in this new regime would be 54,000 rupees per annum. In the 15 lakh tax bracket, your saving would be about 37,000 rupees. Your tax would be 1.5 lakh as opposed to 1.87 lakh. In the 50 lakh bracket, you will be saving as much as 54,000 rupees. 12.33 lakhs is what you will be paying currently compared to 12.87 before. And in the 1 crore bracket, you will be paying only 30.72 lakhs as tax, which is a saving of 60,000 rupees over the previous tax of 31.
And this is all voluntary. If you want to move to the next new tax regime.
This is only eligible for the new tax regime. The old tax regime does not get any of these benefits. Of course, the question that needs to be asked, and obviously this is going to vary from individual to individual, is that after the government is clearly said, and the finance minister said in her speech, that the new tax regime is going to be the default regime, what are you thinking in terms of your ATC deductions? You've got 1.5 lakhs, which are deductions in the old tax regime. And then for people who have a housing loan, I think that is a very, very big component. Your interest deduction is 2 lakh rupees. So effectively, between 24B, which is the housing loan interest, and ATC, which is your regular deductions, you're getting a 3.5 lakh rebate or deduction in your income. Would you want to migrate away from that? You'll have to, again, like I said, it depends on your individual tax structure or individual income structure. But from the government side, I think they're very, very clear. They're moving away from a system of deductions to a system of savings as far as these
Zaka, one important point here is, in the new tax regime, the biggest plus is compliance. It's just 2 clicks. It's not, you don't have to look at all your investments, go back and rework all the investments, go and figure out the deductions, and then you have to allocate. So if you have to get a 1.5 lakh deduction or a 2 lakh rupee deduction, you have to pay interest to that amount. That means you have to take the loading of a home.
Yeah, of course.
So a lot of people got into this habit of buying a home because you get the deduction.
Yes,
Right now, the current generation, this is largely the new profession, because next year onwards is default. One more year of extension in the old tax regime. The government is saying now or next year we're going to force you into it. So better migrate.
Okay.
But what they're saying is, once you pay your tax, that money is in your hand. You don't need to figure out, मैं इधर पैसा लगाऊं, insurance में भी डालूं, उधर भी डालूं, pension scheme में भी डालूं, ताकि मेरा पैसा बच जाए. तुमने tax दे दिया, now this money is there, you go out and spend as you want to do it.
No, so the corollary argument to that is, okay, and this is natural, this is human instinct, right? You have money, you tend to spend, you don't tend to save. So whereas here, whether it's a housing loan interest or whether it is your ATC reductions, even without you knowing or you perforce you perforce are being forced to save. I think that's the debate.
That's the significant shift, no, from a saving mentality to a spending mentality.
Correct.
That's where perhaps the shift is
Joining us now is our next big newsmaker, Hardeep Singh Puri, Petroleum and Urban Development Minister, is joining me live. Dr. Puri, really appreciate your time. The budget has allocated 79,000 crore for the PMAY, which is a hike of 66%, which will ensure that the urban poor get a home. जो छत चाहिए थी उनको मिल जाएगी अपने सर के ऊपर. Do you think this would be a game changer, particularly for the 2024 elections for the BJP?
Maria, first of all, I think that the honest answer is that I'm very encouraged with the provisioning of 79,000 crores. But please note that this is provisioning both for the urban and the rural sector. Equally, you must realize that when Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana is implemented in the rural sector, it creates, as you said, employment. It will mean more cement. It will mean more steel, etc. But this is part of an overall approach which the budget takes. Why do you start with 79,000 crores for Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana? I would go back to the 10 lakh crores. The increase from 7.5 lakh crores to 10 lakh crores on capital expenditure, which is in fact a 33% increase from 7.5 lakh crores. But what is more serious is that 1,30,000 crore will go to the state governments. The state governments will be able to utilize some of it as conditional and some of it is unconditional for effecting reform, etc. So the budget is growth oriented, it is development oriented, and I think a confident finance minister under the overall guidance of the Prime Minister has delivered a budget which is in fact an essential part of the roadmap to India becoming a Viksit Desh or a developed country by 2047.
Mr. Puri, has the budget lowered risk factors which are arising out of the global concerns that have been there regarding slowdown, the war in Ukraine, and also the inflationary numbers?
Maria, my take on the global situation, the turbulence and the risk factor, if you give me just half a minute, let me explain this to you. The global uncertainty did not come with the Russia-Ukraine military conflict. The global problems arose essentially before that, because after March 2020, we were in a virtual global lockdown position. Economic activity had come to a stop because of the dreaded pandemic. And many countries had introduced a very strong stimulus packages. Some countries as large as $20 trillion. Now, if you have an additional $20 trillion chasing the same amount of goods and services, and then there are disruptions in the supply chains, in the labor chain, obviously, in a super inflationary situation, people start discussing the big R. The good news is that the United States, which is the largest economy in the world, has started looking much better, and even the European challenges, I think today appear, to commentators and economists, less severe. The winter in particular, it was not that severe. Another large economy started picking up. So hopefully economic recovery globally and worldwide will not face the imminent threats that it was facing earlier. It's not my case that there are no challenges. Challenges there will be. But we are, as an economy, which is the fastest growing economy, growing at 6.5 to 7%, very well positioned, Maria, to brave those challenges and to negotiate forward, which we did very well, both on the energy front. We diversified our sources of supply. We bought from wherever we could. We are increasing the domestic E&P. We are increasing our green transition. We are going into 20% biofuel blending. We are going into CBG in a big way. And the budget today provides all the ammunition that we require for CBG. For instance, the 5% mandatory blending of CBG. Also, that the problem of FOM will be addressed. So I am delighted to see these provisions in the budget, as I am to see the 79,000 crores. But that 79,000 crores also means that, this is ongoing work. It also means that on the rural area, where we need to address some economic activity issues, this will be helpful in that. So the rural economy will be greatly facilitated by this kind of provisioning of resources.
Since you also hold the petroleum portfolio, I want to understand from you, because you had said that the government should compensate oil marketing companies for the financial hit they have taken by selling petrol and diesel at a less than market rates. We didn't hear about that in the budget speech today.
It's my duty as the line minister to give the, to support the requests of the my clients, which are the OMCs in this case. Whilst you didn't see any this thing, I want to remind you, when they said that they were 28,000 crores down because of gas prices, they were compensated 22,000 crores some time ago. Now, this 35,000 crores which is come in today, 5,000 crores is to replenishing the strategic petroleum this thing. And another 30,000 is for capital expenditure and green transition. I mean, now, one part of them may not be compensated, but overall economic activity is going to those OMCs. So at the end of the day, that 35,000 crores will be going there in one form or the other.
Okay, my last question to you, Dr. Puri. The Finance Minister has highlighted that green growth will be one of the 7 priority areas, which is Saptarishi of this budget 2023. There has been an allocation of 35,000 crore for capital investments towards energy transition and net zero objectives by the Ministry of Petroleum and Natural Gas. The question is this enough?
I was many years ago, Maria, I was taught never to ask a question in response to a question. But I just make the comment, enough is never enough. But I'm encouraged by the 35,000 crores, and I think it will go a long way. It's a very positive contribution. It will be very widely encouraged, because those who are dealing with fossil fuels today are also in the vanguard of making the transition. So I'm very happy with it. But I will not use the word enough, because, somebody will turn around and say, no, but, wish I should have got 40,000 instead of 42,000. Look, a budget is a serious exercise where responsible people have to make a judicious determination about competing claims. Now, is 10,000 crores enough for the Urban Development Fund for tier 2 or 3 cities? Well, it could have been more, but I think 10,000 crores is very good, and everybody will be happy with it. Plus, if we are talking about a transition from now to the year net zero, our net zero is till 2070. So this is just the beginning. So I warmly welcome it. I thank the Finance Minister, and I think it's a very positive step in our green transitioning journey.
All right, Mr. Hardeep Singh Puri, always a pleasure to speak to you. Thank you so much for your time.
We've got our guest with us, Jaivi Shergill, National Spokesperson of the BJP, Dr. Shama Mohammed, Congress National Spokesperson, Nilesh Shah, member of the PMEAC, and we also have Amit Singhania, partner Shardul Amarchand Mangaldas and Company, along with Gurcharan Das ji. Namaste. Thank you very much for your patience. We've got a lot of guests joining us live, so we had to keep you waiting. But Dr. Shama Mohammed, your reaction, your response, everybody giving a thumbs up. Our own on news18.com, nearly 60% plus have said this is a good or an excellent budget. There are about 26% who say it's a poor budget. Where do you stand?
See, the problem in this budget, what I've seen is there's nothing much for health, there's nothing much for education, there's nothing much for farmers, there's nothing much for women, and there's nothing to do for price rise. I'm looking at it as a lay person. I'm looking at myself at this budget. Now, what is there for the price rise which is happening? Has there been any tax cut on petroleum, diesel, cement, for building houses? All those things remain, fertilizers. So what about Manrega, another very important sector? 2.72 lakh crores is required, and it is being reduced from 70,000 crore to 68,000 this time. So Manrega has gone down. I'll give you the figure for Pradhan Mantri Fasal Beam Yojana. Last year was 15,500 crore. This year is 13,625 crore, and it's down by 12%. I'm talking about farmers. PM Kisan, 68,000 crore. Now it's 60,000 crore, reduced by 13%. Rashtriya Krishi Vikas Yojana, 10,433 crore. Now it is 7,130 crore. Krishnamati Yojana, 7,183 crore. Now it is 7,006 crore. So PSS MIS, 1,500 crore, 0.1 crore. So a lot of damage for the Kisans. What is the what? And the other thing is this tax, which you are talking about. Nobody needs to pay tax up to 7 lakh. Is something which is you have to go into the new regime. Now, I just want to ask one question: is this tax new thing came out in 2020? The question today we are asking is, the party is also asking, is how many have shifted from then to this new tax regime? Because the old, even if it is 5 lakhs, you had tax deductions. You had it on housing, you had it on your insurance. So you had those, and those are called as safety nets. Now, if you go into the new, and now they've made it default. So if you just go into the new, you can never come back to the old. And just in case in future one again changes it, those things are your social security.
Correct.
So I don't think one has to make it this default thing, and it's just people's choice.
So you're saying that it's a safety net, but somewhere the government had said that you have to move towards spending more rather than intrinsically wanting to save.
No, but India doesn't have anything called...
Your argument is bought.
Can I just finish?
Yeah, yes.
Can I just finish? India doesn't have anything called a social security thing. America has it for their people. This is basically a social security. We don't know what happens.
Okay.
So that's the other thing. And what about employment? I don't see anything on that. Now you're going to give 50 airports.
So
right? Already all the airports are with Adani.
One minute. Let's not get into personal jibes about who's been given and all that. It's going to derail the whole thing as far as the budget is concerned. Let Jaivir Shergill answer each and every allegation. Shamaji, please yield. Shamaji, please yield. I have given you. No. I have not interrupted you. I have not interrupted you, but that should not become a monologue. It's a debate. There are other guests also. Shamaji, there are other guests also.
You need to allow the Congress to finish their point.
Jaivir Shergill, please rebut. The Congress believes this is a bogus budget. It does nothing for anybody. And you pulled out money from the Kisan. God knows where you have put it. You're showing big allocations, but what is it going to yield? What does it do for me as an individual? That's the crux of the question that Shama Mohammed is asking.
I think on a lighter note, I must say one thing. Today, India is smiling. There is a happy vibe across the nation. And I am the only unhappy class today are the Congress spokespersons who have a wrinkle on their forehead or sadness, because Congress cannot stomach or digest the fact that the big budget has gone all-round applause from every section of the society. Point number one. The fact of the matter is, opposition is crying because the budget has come out with flying colors, flying marks, and put the trajectory of the Indian economy on a flying path. Point number one. As I'm a Punjabi, I must say this is a balle budget with 3 P characteristics: path breaking, progressive, and pro people. Now let's come to pure facts and figures. This budget has added a turbo engine when it comes to the India growth story 2023 onwards, generating employment, boosting manufacturing, uplifting the farmers, and also putting India on the path of innovation and green future. Now there was a point made about what does it do for employment. The capex raise, the first time in the history of independent India, double digit, 10 lakh crore, has the potential to create employment. Point number one. Point number two, the 66% rise in Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana, where 3.5 crore houses have already been built, will create employment. The Agricultural Startup Fund, which encourages young boys and girls, men and women to participate in agriculture, will generate employment. The establishment of the cooperative societies at the panchayat level will create employment. 47 lakh youth will be given apprenticeship fund which will help them generate operation. The training in one aspect which I've been seeing your show which must focus on the artificial intelligence. Yeah. The budget 2023 with special focus on artificial intelligence will not only train our youth for the future, but will also generate employment. You have a Make in India artificial intelligence, you have a training in coding mechanism, which will further accelerate appointment. Now, what does it do for the common man?
Correct.
The Congress is today fumbled and troubled because the budget has achieved the twin test. One, putting money directly in the hands of the middle class by revising the tax slab. Second, by putting money which has a trickle down and a ripple effect through capex. I am going to share a RBI report with you, which is in front of me. 1 rupee in the hand of a taxpayer generates 95 paisa. Right. 1 rupee through capital investment generates 3 rupees 45 paisa. So we have given up on a 2 rupees.
So you are saying roundabout you are going to put more money eventually.
Profit.
But a lot of sentiment which is saying is traditionally those who are in the habit of saving, now they are being discouraged to save and they may encouraged to spend. So what about all their savings and where is the social security net? Let me just bring in our other panelists and then I'll come back to you, Shamaji, for a counter. Nilesh Shah, member PMESG is with us. Amit Singhania is with us. Your thoughts, Nilesh Shah, on this budget? Does it encourage you, discourage you? Will it encourage corporates to bring out the animal in them? Will my pockets feel heavier personally?
This is a budget which tries to balance between various conflicting objectives. It has increased allocation to infrastructure investment up to 10 lakh crore, which is more than what market was expecting. Second, it has cut taxes to the extent of 35,000 crore, which will support consumption at the taxpayer level. And third, it has also pursued the path of fiscal prudence, with deficit coming at 5.9 for this year, next year, and 4.5 target for FY26. Within the constraints, this is a reasonable budget. It will support consumption. It will create multiplier effect on growth if the infrastructure spend is executed on ground. And it will also encourage private sector investment, though it will require cooperation not only from central government, but also state and local government, so that ease of doing business is actually improved on the ground. Net, I think it's a reasonable budget within a challenging global environment.
Amit Singhania?
Yeah, hi. So let me just concentrate my comments from the tax legislation perspective because I am a tax professional. Look, Income Tax Act has been amended through various finance bills over the decades and so. If you see the mainstay of these budgetary proposals has been to rationalize the existing provision to address the unintended anomaly. If you see the fine prints of the budget, the mainstay, the main ethos of the budget is to rationalize the tax provisions, try to curb the litigation, and there is one beautiful provision which has been added. For example, I would say a lot of significant litigation has been blocked at the first appellate stage, which is the Commissioner of Income Tax Appeals. They have been overburdened with the appeals. So a parallel system has been created through this budget to the Joint Commissioner, so the appeal can be transferred to the Joint Commissioner level, so that the Commissioner of Appeals can be spared away to concentrate upon the few important appeals. So this is a significant provision. Rather, in my cases also, there has been no hearing for the last 2 years because they have been overburdened, because so many appeals have been generated on a monthly basis. So the mainstay of the budget is just to rationalize the tax provision. There is no requirement to do something new.
Mr. Singhania, will you say
has already come out with
that there is much to answer in terms of clarity? There is no clarity. There is a question that is doing the rounds on social media, and an individual is asking, if I earn 6 lakh rupees and the minister has said that till ₹7 there is zero tax, then what is the 3 to 6 lakh tax slab that is attracting a 5% tax?
Nothing will be taxed. So although the slab does not provide to the 7 lakh, there is another provision 87A
which will provide a rebate, and if you are earning income up to 7 lakh rupees, there will be no tax.
Correct.
But if you are earning income 7 lakh 1 rupees, then you will fall under the slab.
But Zaka,
this rebate
the point that you were trying to make for ATC and...
What I want to know is, the finance minister saying that the new tax regime is going to be the default regime. Amit, whatever income bracket I am in, whether I'm under 7 lakhs or I'm 10 lakhs or I'm 50 lakhs, going forward, should people, start saving up for these deductions under ATC, housing loan, etc., or should we not look at that aspect at all? Try and save more tax, and then it's up to the individual to decide what you want to do with that saved tax.
So I think it is the latter. The discretion has been given to the individual taxpayer what they want to with their money, and the whole genesis is coming from the premise that the tax policy has been shifting away from the exemption. If you see on the corporate side also, over the last decade, the endeavor has been to shift away from the exemption. And that has been the promise of the government. This is the OECD recommendation.
No, I'm asking you a simple question. If I'm a young man or a young woman entering the workforce, let's say even if I'm getting above 7 lakhs, should I think in long term for ATC deductions and for a housing loan interest waiver?
I always say the tax cannot be the driver to attract an investment into a particular sector.
Okay.
Just like the housing sector, it can at most be the enabler. In case the young individuals want to invest into the housing sector, wants to invest into the house property, they will irrespective go towards it.
All right.
Great. So Nilesh ji, somewhere, are you telling the Naya Bharat or the generation over the next 25 years, is the government telling them, don't have a save first mentality, you go ahead and spend. But the question that's coming across from the opposition and many other people is, what's my security net? By default, when we were saving because of these deductions, there is a security net that we build over a period of our corporate life or our professional life. If you're taking that away, how are you going to secure them? What's their safety net?
So one, the security is not coming through just compulsory investment. The PF and the NPS and other things are there for some time. Has it provided security to everyone? Answer is no. The security comes from financial education. We have to make people aware about concept of savings and investment. For example, Indians are great saver. Our savings rate is more than 30%. But where do we go and invest? We go and invest in real estate. We go and invest in gold. A country like India has spent more than $500 billion in import of gold in just last 21 years. And this gold is lying in Tijori.
Correct.
This is more than foreign direct investment received. This is more than foreign portfolio investment received. We need to educate people so that instead of savings for tax benefits, they start saving for securing their future.
Okay. So very well put. So you change the mindset. Tax बचाने के लिए save मत करो, अपना future secure करने के लिए save करो. So then you have a certain level of financial education and financial jurisprudence that you personally will also practice. Gurcharan Das ji, this has become quite a bit of a conversation point across the board. Everybody is looking at this. कि अब मैं बचाऊंगा क्या? मेरा deduction छीन लिया आपने. What's the point? Why are you forcing me onto the new tax regime? What's the benefit of doing something like this?
No, I completely agree with the philosophy that you don't use taxation as the basis of making your investment decisions. You should be free to make your own investment decisions, and the best budgets are the ones which don't have exemptions. They are clean, they are transparent. You don't need CAs to help you. And whatever in terms of those deductions and savings that are as it was removed, it should be translated into a flat rate, a lower flat rate as far as possible. That should be, in other words, a budget should be friendly to the ordinary citizen.
Right.
The more exemptions you put in a budget, the more complicated you make your life. And this is one of the positive things, I believe. This is the way, for example, the whole faceless assessment. has changed the face of the treatment of a taxpayer.
Right.
Similarly, you're giving respect to the taxpayer and not inducing a taxpayer to do what you think is right. Let the taxpayer, you can save. Some Indians, as you just pointed out, Indians are savers. They can invest, let them invest in mutual funds. The important thing, which I was hoping for, is that all capital gains are equal.
Right.
In other words, don't treat real estate capital gains different from mutual fund capital gains.
Gurcharan Das ji, allow me to please interrupt you. I have Union Minister Rajiv Chandrasekhar ji joining us live. Skill, technology, a lot of hats that he wears. Namaste, Jai Hind, Rajiv ji. You're going to get busier now. The thrust of this budget is towards, comes right under your domain.
No, not really, Anand. I think this budget is very significant in many ways, but it is significant in that it really is signaling to all of us as citizens that we are at an inflection point as a nation, and we are really, by a simple thing like 45 lakh crore budget with a 13.3 lakh crore focus on global standard infrastructure, we are signaling that we are building the country for the future generations. And then added to that, we have digitalization, which is accelerated, that the budget signals. It talks about skilling, modern skills for our youth. It talks about 160 new nursing colleges, because Indian nurses are in demand, not just in India, but all over the world. It talks about 30 Skill India international centers that will create opportunities, that will prepare Indian youth for opportunities globally. So in many ways, this is the first of a series of, I assume, of future-ready budgets that are signaling that we are entering really a home stretch of going from fifth to the third largest economy first, and then and onwards and forwards. The $5 trillion economy, as the Economic Survey and the Chief Economic Advisor said, is within reach. The third largest global economy is within reach. And so all of these things that are being spoken about in these budgets, all these initiatives are really to propel the country, propel our economy into a different level and a different stratosphere. And I think perhaps it is because we are now at a different level of performance, and we're building a different narrative of a different type of future with almost reimagined ambition, that a lot of people, a lot of my friends in the opposition are struggling to characterize this. And because they fail to find anything meaningful, they go back to the tried and dusted. It is anti-poor. It is not dealing with. I heard the former finance minister who ran the economy to the ground today say that the finance minister did not mention the word poverty, as if mentioning the word poverty is some sort of a qualification or a badge of honor that you wear. So, we are at a very, very different place. This budget is signaling to the world and to all of us as Indians that we are, as a nation, at a very different place and ready to really take off into a different orbit.
The budget is pushing a lot of people to unlearn and also relearn. Now, let's break that down. Especially in terms of learning, the thrust is towards three important aspects: agriculture, labor, and also a digital public infrastructure. And you mentioned the AI centers. All of that hinges on a huge amount of data. So in these three aspects, we have three reforms which are still stuck: data protection, data privacy, labor reforms, and agriculture reforms. So without these three in place, can we really achieve what's envisioned in the budget?
So, I think there are essential ingredients of this journey to build New India for the Amrit Kal. You are aware very clearly that we have an absolutely world-class digital personal data protection bill in the works that has gone through consultation, that is now almost getting ready to be sent to cabinet and then onwards to parliament. We have an ecosystem. The budget today mentions the National Data Governance Framework and Policy that went through a process of consultation in the early and mid 2022 and is becoming policy today, that creates a framework for organizing, managing government data, and also creating the essential platform for AI research and AI innovation, which is the India Datasets platform. And the budget further alluded to the 3 centers of excellence for artificial intelligence. And as the Honorable Finance Minister said, it is about AI for India. And we want to put AI to work for improving governance, which has significantly improved in the last 8-9 years with digital technology, but take it even further. So all of these are connected. I don't think anything is stuck. I can assure you that in Prime Minister Narendra Modi's government, nobody can afford to have anything stuck.
So you are saying that the data protection DPDP bill is not just in the works, it's ready to be sent to cabinet and...
Yes, the consultation is over, Anand. As you are aware, the consultation process, which lasted a month and a half, almost 2 months, extensive consultation with all the stakeholders, that process is complete. Now we are tabulating all of the inputs and redrafting whatever corrections and changes that need to be made to the bill. And then the administrative process takes over. It goes from my ministry to the cabinet, and then from cabinet to parliament, and from parliament to, for after debate and discussion to the to be implemented. So that process is underway. I was responding to your characterization that things are stuck. I can assure you that nothing is stuck.
Nothing is. My final question, Rajiv Chandrasekhar ji, there are many who are questioning whether the government really intends to help the middle class, because the thrust towards moving to the new tax regime seems to be more of a burden for those who have saved all these years. You're suddenly disincentivizing savings and trying to push spending. While my interest rates have gone up, my savings rates have come down. All of that.
No, I don't think so. I think the difference between the old tax regime and the new tax regime is very simple. The new tax regime basically is a flat rate. It's for those who like to keep their tax planning very simple. And of course, that is the default tax model that we are encouraging people to adopt. For those who have exemptions and they have the other older tax regime that they want to follow, the choice is always available to them. So it's not a question of
but only for a year.
Government pointing in any one direction and saying go here or go there. If a particular citizen or a family seeks to have a large number of exemptions in their tax planning, the older tax regime works for them and they are free to do so.
But that's only for a year.
The newer tax regime is a flat rate model, which today, as you see, in the finance minister has announced that the exemption slabs have been increased, and therefore those who follow that get that benefit. So, but to the larger question of what the middle class or indeed any Indian is benefiting, I can assure you that these 13.3 lakh crores in infrastructure, the last year 7.5 lakh crores in infrastructure, year before that 5 lakh crores in infrastructure, these are all going to build better roads, better airports, better railway stations, better railway experience, better public transport, more metros. These are all things that impact a middle class, salaried, working class Indian every day of his or her life. As they travel to work, as they travel back and forth. These are all issues that collectively make up what the middle class is getting from the government of India. I think to characterize a tax break as the only thing that a middle class or indeed any citizen gets is to see this very, very narrowly. The entire mission of this government, as the Prime Minister has repeatedly talked about, is ease of living. It is to create better standards of living for an individual hardworking Indian and his or her family.
Well,
and that is precisely what all of this spending is meant to do and is doing.
Well, the challenge is now implementation and to deliver what has been promised. Rajiv Chandrasekhar ji, always a pleasure speaking with you. Look forward to speaking with you soon again. Thank you very much. Namaste.
Thank you.
We take a very short break. The coverage continues. Stay with us. push. Capex outlay increased steeply by 33%. So this is the infrastructure and investment. That's the third pillar. The fourth pillar is unleashing the potential. National data governance policy for innovation and research for startups. This time around, very aggressively pushing agri startups. So at the rural level, encouraging entrepreneurship and a certain level of initiative. Financial sector, it looks at the MSME revamp schemes, getting an infusion of 9,000 crore plus into the entire corpus and strengthening what is going to be the driving force in our push to becoming a manufacturing economy or a nation too, along with services. 35,000 crore capital investment towards energy transition. Green growth is something which we are committed to, and like Mr. Kant and Paramayar were saying, sustainability is core to our growth and we need to leapfrog, take that jump, and that can be done only with youth power. So the next pillar, PM Kaushal Vikas Yojana 4.2 to skill lakhs of youth with new age courses, on-the-job training and sector-wise skilling. And this will be also part of the entire Vishwakarma initiative, where those who are doing the hard skilled labor and work, craftsmen, they will also be encouraged. So these are the 7 pillars that Ms. Nirmala Sitharaman, the Finance Minister, spoke about. Let's listen into a short excerpt of her 1 hour 25-minute long budget speech.
I propose to increase the rebate limit to 7 lakh in the new tax regime, the new personal income tax regime, with 6 income slabs starting from 2.5 lakh. I propose to change the tax structure in this regime by reducing the number of slabs to 5 and increasing the tax exemption limit to 3 lakhs. The new tax rates are 0 to 3 lakh, nil. 3 to 6 lakhs, 5%. 6 to 9 lakhs, 10%. 9 to 12 lakh, 15%. 12 to 15 lakhs, 20%. And above 15 lakhs, 30%. Mahila Samman Savings Certificate will be made available for a 2-year period up to March 2025. This will offer deposit facility up to 2 lakh in the name of a woman or girls for a tenor of 2 years at fixed interest rate of 7.5% with partial withdrawal option. The maximum deposit limit for senior citizens savings scheme will be enhanced from 15 lakh to 30 lakhs of rupees. The maximum deposit limit for monthly income account scheme will be enhanced from 4.5 lakh to 9 lakh for single account and from 9 lakh to 15 lakh for joint account. Pradhan Mantri Kaushal Vikas Yojana 4.0 will be launched to skill lakhs of youth within the next 3 years. On-job training, industry partnership and alignment of courses with needs of industry will be emphasized.
So let's quickly look at the highlights of Budget 2023 and why we say it's Sabka Budget. It's got fiscal prudence in consideration, it's got poll considerations. So there is about the vision of Bharat in 2047, but there is also the vision of the ballot in 2024 and of course the build-up in the states. We got Zaka on the wall, not with the poll numbers, but with the budget numbers this time, and we look at all of that in detail. But let's signpost some of the salient features. The growth via higher capital spending up by 33% to 10 lakh crore rupees. It surprised everybody and the corporate world has welcomed it. Focus on fiscal prudence continues. No tax on salary up to 7 lakh rupees in the new tax regime. So it's an out and out rebate if your salary is 7 lakhs. If it is more than that, then you get into the slabs which have also been revised in the new tax regime. Tax savings for young and retired continue. Nudge to the new tax regime is very clearly evident. This capex target of 10 lakh crore is very, very important because this capital expenditure is what will solve perhaps the jobs problem, ladies and gentlemen. Is everybody happy about it? We have to wait and see whether or not everybody is happy about it. What are the other allocations and some of the other sectors that have been taken care of in this budget? Let's try and understand. The PM Awas Yojana, the outlay has been hiked by 66%. So the construction, building of homes, affordable homes for those for whom the dream of a makan, their own makan, a chhat on their head, was a far distant dream. they want to take that further. But what that does is that again generates employment, the steel industry, cement industry, and of course the labor intensive industry. 35,000 crore for green energy transition, and it's being incentivized because sustainability, green energy is one of the 7 pillars which the finance minister said Saptarishi. 2.4 lakh crore out of the 10 lakh crore is the outlay for railways. So infrastructure push continues. So they're on that path. They're staying steady and they're not deviating from it. It's perhaps the biggest ever allocation that's ever happened for railways. And then what are the other salient features that stand out? Is there something in there for the Kisan? Yes. Is skilling an important aspect that will be considered? Yes. And these pushes are over the next 3-year horizon. So they're looking beyond Lok Sabha 2024. And the Prime Minister very, very clearly said a Samriddha, Samarth and Sampanna Bharat. That's the vision for 2047. So let's try and break up what stands out for you and me, the salaried class, ladies and gentlemen. The highlight is tax mein kuch bachega ke liye, tax mein kuch bachega liye. For 2 years, nothing happened, Zaka. But this time, big bang announcements.
Yeah, I think for the middle class, absolutely, it is the tax numbers that everybody is crunching. They're looking at the new tax regime. First of all, the big picture, the new tax regime up until last year had 7 slabs. She's now slashed that down to 5. So it's an important thing. The big announcement, of course, is that if you have an income, like Anand was saying, up to 7 lakh rupees, then you pay no income tax whatsoever. Anything above 7 lakhs, then this is the new tax regime. These are the rates as per which you will be paying your tax. So let's assume you have an income of 8 lakh rupees, which means for the first 3 lakh rupees, you will not be paying any income tax. Between 3 lakh and 6 lakh rupees, that's 3 lakh rupees, you will pay 5%, that's 15,000 rupees. And then for the remaining 6 lakh to 8 lakh, which is 2 lakh rupees, you will pay at 10%, which is 30,000. So effectively, your net tax at an income of 8 lakh rupees annually would be 45,000 rupees, which would be a net saving, and we'll get to that in 1 second. But I think what they've essentially done, what the finance minister has essentially done, is rationalize both the slabs and the rates. From 7 rates, we've gone down to 5 rates now. And I think that is a very, very clear signal, a nudge that the new tax regime is where you need to be.
Where we go back to that number, ये बस trailer था, just to give you an understanding. There are many people who have more questions and more issues. We'll play out what the Prime Minister. There's one other.
To increase the rebate limit to 7 lakh in the new tax regime. Thus, persons in the new tax regime with income up to 7 lakhs will not have to pay any tax at all.
We are continuing our special broadcast on Budget 2023, and joining us now, another set of newsmakers, Manish Tiwari, Congress MP, and also Jayant Sinha, BJP MP. Jayant Sinha, Manish Tiwari has a concern and he has put out a tweet on that. He says, with government capex at 10 lakh crores, it is clear that private investment is not happening and cylinders are not firing. What will be your opening remark and your opening comment to Manish Tiwari?
No, private sector capex is picking up, as Manish ji may have seen in the economic survey. There, the chief economic advisor has shown clearly with data that over the last 2 or 3 quarters, private sector capex has quite turned the corner and really picked up. And there are very positive signs as we move forward when it comes to private sector capex. Number one, capacity utilization has gone up, which means that factories have to be built, power plants have to be built, because capex is required for high capacity utilization situations. We know that our banks are in very good shape now. NPAs have been reduced, and because of that, credit growth has also picked up quite nicely, quite strongly, and that's doing very well. And of course, because growth continues to be strong for us, we've had a year in which we're going to do 7% growth, and we are likely to do 6.5% growth next year. Because growth is strong, there is plenty of profitable growth for our companies to chase, and those are the reasons why private sector capex will in fact go up.
Okay, Manish Tiwari, since you write extensively on issues of national security, the good news certainly is that the defense budget has been hiked by 6%. Education again has gone up by 13%. Health sector has seen a hike of 15% as well. Is that good news that these are areas which were of concern? All opposition leaders had been raising their concerns around it, and the expenditure that has been addressed by the government.
Well, allow me to first elaborate on the tweet which you put as a question to Jayant Sinha ji. The budget estimates for 23-24 peg the size of the union budget at 45 lakh crores. Out of that, the deficit is 17,85,000 crores. So therefore, 17,85,000 crores of the budget is unfunded. Now, the government says that they will go out to the market and borrow 11.8 lakh crores. Essentially, what this means is that the room which is available for private sector to really be able to borrow is going to come down substantively, for the reason that the Russian-Ukrainian war, the recession that is being experienced in some of the advanced economies, that actually reduces the amount of money available. So therefore, if you want the private sector cylinders to start firing, and this was the original intent of the government when they gave 1,45,000 crores in concessions to corporate India in the budget of 2019-20, that certainly is not happening. And that is the reason why government has decided to increase its capital expenditure to 10 lakh crores, up by 33%, because essentially there is no private investment happening. And when government decides to put in money into capital expenditure, it comes at the cost of the social sector. And therefore, if you were to look at the various schemes, Manrega allocations are down by 13,000 crores. The National Education Mission is down by 600 crores. The National Health Mission is down by 375 crores. You talked about defense spending going up. And Maria, that's a bit of a chimera, for the simple reason that you've had this standoff with China now going back to April 2020. And in terms of capital expenditure as a part of the defense budget, it's only gone up by 10,000 crores from 1,62,000 from 1.52 lakh crores to 1.62 lakh crores. So essentially, the rest of it is all revenue expenditure. And in fact, of course, Jainji is an economist, and I defer to his wisdom because he's also the chair of a finance committee. But in my estimation, the hike in the defense budget barely covers the inflation.
Okay. Jayant Sinha, did you overpromise and underdeliver?
No, absolutely not. In fact, if this government has shown us one thing over and over again, which is that they underpromise and overdeliver. And you can see that in the numbers for this budget. If you look at revenue collections, we have collected much more than we had promised. If you look at our expenditure in certain areas, we have delivered more than we said we would. So we have absolutely done a superb job in terms of meeting all of our performance goals. And that is why today 11.7 crore households have toilets, 9.6 crore LPG connections have been put out. There are 47.8 crores Jan Dhan accounts. These numbers go on and on because we have been able to deliver against our promises. Now, when we talk about Narega, let's also be clear that Narega spending was very elevated during the COVID pandemic because of the reverse migration. That has come down somewhat as people have come back into the cities. once we've got through the COVID pandemic, which I may add is because of the 220 crore worth of vaccinations that we have done. And so we've dealt with COVID, and as that has happened, the migration back into the cities is going on. And of course, as a result of that, NREGA payments have automatically come down. However, NREGA is a demand-driven program. By law, it's a guarantee program. Anybody that demands NREGA work can get NREGA work, and if required, of course, the Honorable Finance Minister will move a supplementary demand for grants and ensure that there is more expenditure if it's required for NREGA. Now, those are some of the points that Manishji had made, but he also spoke about defense spending. Now, as far as defense spending is concerned, we know that there is significant ongoing expenditure, which is of course for troops, for maintenance and so on, and they remain at the levels that they are right now. They've increased somewhat. But it's really the capital expenditure that is gated in some ways by the kinds of large programs that we pursue, and those can't be ramped up and down that easily. And so if the government has increased the capital expenditures by a certain amount, it's because they have taken into account what it is that they can procure from these major acquisition programs that they have, whether it's for an aircraft carrier, for a submarine, whether it's for the Rafale or others. So those are put together in a very thoughtful way by defense procurement. And we should feel very comfortable with these estimates because they represent very thoughtful, very strategic acquisition programs.
Manish Tiwari, I'm going to come to you specifically in the context of what the big push has been done for the PMAY. It will have a cascading impact and will benefit other sectors as well, the cement, the steel, and also ensure rural employment.
Well, Maria, let me first address two questions which Jayanji raised. The first, of course, with regard to defense spending, because if I heard the finance minister correctly, she started off by saying that this is a budget for 25 years for the Amrit Kal. But it is also then a budget whereby you are looking at a Sino-Indian competition over the next 2.5 decades. And with China actually ramping up into a fifth generation warfare paradigm, reorganizing their theater commands, investing very heavily in cyber and space warfare, a measly increase of 10,000 crores on capital acquisitions, I do not think meets the long-term defense requirements or the defense needs of India. While I take Mr. Jain Sinha's point that obviously revenue expenditure has gone up because of the additional deployments on the line of actual control since April 2020, but that still does not make for a future-ready army if you're saying that this budget is actually looking at the future. The second thing which I wanted to point out very respectfully is when there was a debate in July in Parliament, which I had led on inflation, I had in fact pointed out that the May and June of 2022 were the highest months in terms of Manrega demand. So therefore, if reverse migration has actually happened, it did not show in Manrega demand numbers, at least till the middle of last year. And the final point which I wanted to make was, since Jayanji spoke about LPG cylinders, you see, our crude oil import from Russia was only 0.2% in the previous fiscal. It's up to 25% now. We are actually buying crude oil at discounted prices. Why is it that that benefit is not being passed on to the consumers? Why is it that LPG cylinders are 1,000 rupees plus? Why is it that petrol is selling at over 100 rupees? Why are those benefits of cheaper crude oil not being passed on to the consumers? And that, obviously has an inflammatory impact. And one thing which the budget has subterfuged is the whole unemployment situation. You have unemployment numbers prevailing at an all-time high. So therefore, while we may wax eloquent about a futuristic budget, but if you come down to the basic fundamentals, I do not think the budget numbers really square up in terms of the immediate challenges which India faces.
All right, Manish Tiwari and Jain Sinha, I really appreciate your time. Thank you so much.
Well, joining us now is the MOS External Affairs, Meenakshi Lekhi-ji. Meenakshi-ji, namaste. This is Anand Narasimhan. Thank you for speaking with us on Budget Day 2023. Your first thoughts, because Prime Minister Narendra Modi had very clearly said that this is a budget which not just India but all of the world is going to be watching very carefully. So let me ask you, in your domain, is what's going to be the global response?
Absolutely right. So I would say that everybody is watching this budget, considering when you're rising up against the stream, everybody is watching for you. And we remember the time when we were part of Fragile 5. And from Fragile 5, in past 8-9 years, the journey has been to top 5. So obviously the struggles have been immense, but the fact that India has made its place in the top 5 economies of the world, and we are one of the most populated nations, we are the driving engines of economy of the globe. Everybody is going to be watching us, and we have proved ourselves and our mettle that in spite of challenges of post-COVID recovery, slowing down of economy across the globe, challenges of export, challenges of importing certain things, disruption of supply chains, we've done pretty well, and one of the lowest inflation rates to managing 1.2 or 1.3 billion people is not a joke, and managing the food supplies to everything else, and that's what is the success story of our budget.
Ma'am, we have seen how the policy of this government is women-driven. Would you say that one of the big takeaways certainly would be Mahila Samman Savings Certificate, and what do you think is the thought behind this?
So the thought, I mean, if I can say that the thought behind Mahila Samman certificates is that 2 lakh seems like maybe for some people it may seem like a small amount, but the average women need some kind of protection to their small savings, and also incentive to save. And women, irrespective of which strata of the society they come from, they are big savers. So if you can invest, say, 2 lakh rupees and get a fixed interest of 7.5% for 2 years, it adds to the certainty of money which you will receive post 2 years. Plus, this is also generation of resources so far as government is concerned, because that many more women will come up with 2 lakh savings in the name of girl child, in the name of young women, and a whole lot of young working women will also be able to save that kind of money for their own safety, security, and also add up to the formalization of economy, which will benefit the country. So it's a huge step, and also symbolic that we have to move away from appeasement politics to empowerment politics, and we need to do something substantial for women, and especially the kind of policies which have come on this certification, along with self-help groups and employment generation. They are going to go a long way in creating the atmosphere of empowered women.
Ma'am, so this is a big year for India. India is hosting the G20, it's hosting the SCO. There are a series of meetings in the run-up to those two summits. I did not see any specific allocation for the hosting of these summits, or will that be subsumed under the overall budget for the Ministry of External Affairs?
That's right. You would have seen there has been a hike of budget to Ministry of External Affairs, and we have linked that hike to the SCO presidency. That Shanghai Cooperation India becomes the India has assumed the presidency of SCO in addition to the presidency of G20. So all our preparations and related matters will be dealt with and handled under this budgetary allocation. In addition to the fact that we engage with several of our neighbors, including Afghanistan, where we do not call it an aid or grant, and that is India's sensitivity. We call it developmental cooperation, so a whole lot of budgeting procedures for developmental cooperation to our neighbors and long-standing friends is also there.
Meenakshi, the last 3 or 4 years have seen two black swan events. We're also looking at very turbulent times, global recessionary trends, conflict in and around us. Iran, Israel is just opening up. We have Russia, Ukraine going on for nearly a year. How much of that is going to affect India's growth story? And can we insulate ourselves? How much can we insulate ourselves? Does this budget take that into account?
I would say no country in today's time and age of globalization can insulate itself completely. But that is precisely why this budget becomes important, that in spite of challenges and not because things are going in our favor, that we have all stood in a good stead and we have managed our resources well, keeping all these sensitivities intact and caring for everyone and doing this balancing act. And that is why this budget becomes so very special, that the policies which this government started in 2014, we have been consolidating year after year, and Sabka Saath, Sabka Vikas has been the motto, and that consolidation is what you're seeing in this budget. And all the past policies, whether spending on toilets, giving energy to women through Ujjwala, building roads, spending on ports, laying highways of internet, spending on 5G, all that has actually helped. I mean, just come to think of it, we had 62 airports earlier, and today we have 148 airports. Correct. Or 142 airports, and now we are planning to have 50 more airports. So. Sure. Airport is not just an airport in which some people get employment, but airport is a place which brings employment and prosperity to the entire region. Correct. So I believe that this budget is a budget which is showcasing the past reforms which this government has undertaken, and is also laying the foundation of the future, what future has to do for our country, and thus a futuristic budget.
Thank you very much, ma'am, for speaking with us. That's the MOSMEA, Meenakshi Lekhi. I also want to get in a voice from corporate India. Chairman Hero Enterprises, Mr. Sunilkant Munjal is now joining us. Thank you very much, sir. The headline figure, of course, from the Finance Minister's budget speech today was the big capex spend, 33% increase, 10 lakh crores. But the fact that she's managed to increase that outlay and yet at the same time stick to the fiscal glide path, what do you make of this fiscal tightrope that the Finance Minister has walked?
I think this has been a wonderful tightrope walk that she has demonstrated. On the one hand, she's continued down the road of growth, which the country sorely needs, even though we are growing faster than most of the parts of the world. But for our own needs, it is essential right now. At the same time, she's also managed to do a social spend on groups, skilling centers, green agriculture, green hydrogen. So it's actually been a very vast area she's covered in a shorter than normal speech. And in reasonably simple language, she managed to cover a fairly large ground, I must say.
The 35,000 crore allocation for transitioning from fossil fuels to clean energy, what kind of sort of knock-on effect do you reckon that will have in the auto sector as well as in the ancillary space?
I think it's going to have 2 or 3 different impacts. One, the current structure of the industry will change because there are a lot more new players who are entering the automotive industry, and some of them will give real competition to the existing players. Also, the component industry in clean fuels is much, much smaller. So we will actually see a negative growth of the number of units in the auto component area. But it will create a whole lot of new opportunities in the infrastructure that the clean mobility requires. Whether it's charging stations or it's batteries or replacement of batteries, there's a whole host of new initiatives which will come up. And as we move forward, companies are also looking at autonomous driving, etc. So it is just a whole slew of new initiatives that will come up, which is why I was happy with the proposal to set up an initiative to encourage apps for 5G, for example.
Correct.
I was very happy with what she's spoken about, artisan skills, that one district, one product. That's very powerful program. I don't know how many people realize that. It can actually be a game changer for rural India. Because not only do we need to improve agriculture, we need to improve the rural economy overall. Because only if all the rural India grows, does all of India grow.
And one final word, I mean, a marker of that rural demand and rural growth is, of course, the sale of two-wheelers. Are you seeing a significant pickup in demand, particularly in the last few months, since now we are very much out of the pandemic?
So first, to clarify, I am no longer running Hero MotoCorp.
True, I know that.
My brother does. But just to tell you that, So it's interesting. In almost all product categories, whether you look at cars, motorcycles, TVs, refrigerators, the lower price, simpler models have all suffered in demand. The higher end of the market has actually done exceedingly well. Which is worrying because the spend available, the surplus available to spend at the bottom of the pyramid has actually got squeezed. Inflation has had an impact, and compensation and wages have not kept up. Which is why some of these initiatives are actually critical, that while the government spends on big infrastructure, it needs to create demand so that the private sector investment can also get crowded in. And I think if we continue down this road and we are able to implement what is announced today, we will see a salutary impact of that in the next year to 2 years. Starting in the next year to 2 years, but covering 3 to 5 years, I would imagine.
All right. Mr. Munjal, as always, a pleasure speaking with you. Thank you very much for speaking with us here on CNN News 18. So the big takeaway, of course, is on the capex figures, the fiscal deficit glide path. But I think, Anand, you can walk us through, what are the other big numbers that stand out?
The numbers are that loosen your pockets and start spending. That's what everybody is doing. The government is saying we are spending. They're asking the private sector to start spending, and they're telling the taxpayer also move on to the new tax regime and have more money to spend. Just settle your taxes in one click, no problems with compliance, and go ahead and start spending. We will secure your future, but go ahead and start spending. That's what it is. Let's quickly look at the key highlights of this budget 2023, ladies and gentlemen. We're signposting some of the salient features, and the reason why is that these slabs are very, 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 very important. Now, let's look at this, ladies and gentlemen. Growth via higher capital spending, focus on fiscal prudence, no tax on salary up to 7 lakhs. So that means at 7 lakhs, it's a hard stop. If you get 7 lakh and 10 rupees, that means you get into the slab based, and we'll get to Zaka and that to try and explain that, and then other aspects too. Nudge for the new tax regime. They're saying that's going to be the default tax regime because somewhere they've extended the old tax regime by 1 more year, ladies and gentlemen. That means the government is saying very soon in the near future, you've got to move away from the old tax regime. You want to save, don't save to save tax, save to secure yourself. So de-link the two. That's what they're trying to say. 2.4 lakh out of the big capital expenditure of 10 lakh crore overall, including the state grants, etc., is about 13 lakh crore is towards railways, the biggest outlay. So you can realize the thrust that they're going to give. And of course, Ashwini Vaishnav was, while speaking, was very, very happy about it. PM Awas Yojana outlay hiked by 66%. Hardeep Puri talked about that. Green energy transition, everybody is talking about this because India is saying our growth is going to be sustainable. We will try and meet the SDG goals. We want to be net zero in 2070. We need to start working on it right away. Let's quickly look at the aspect that this is not a populist budget because there aren't too many revedes or freebies, but there is something in it for everybody. And more importantly, the marginalized sections who are not being talked about, who have not yet been reached. Nearly 30 lakh, that's their number of tribals who are very, very backward, very poor, and they are going to reach there. The allocation is nearly 15,000 crore for that. Revamp credit guarantee for MSMEs. They want to power the MSMEs and those allocations stay. But overall, it's prudence and not populism that we are talking about. Zaka Jacob has got the census, it's nosedive. Is it the budget that pushed it up? And then other factors that sent it back down. Yeah.
So I think the finance minister overall will be happy with the way the markets react. Opened at 59,737. She started the speech. It was just a shade above 60,000. And then the Sensex climbed to 60,773. So at one point, it was 1,000 points plus since its opening. So I think that way it was fantastic. By the time she finished her speech around 12:30, 1 o'clock, it was at 60,773. Then in the post-lunch session, there was this massive slump. It came down to 58,816. But eventually, with some institutional buying, it went back up to close the day at 158 points up. from the starting of the day. The Nifty, on the other hand, it started in positive territory, ended the day in the red. Of course, the market being worried about other concerns, but the immediate sort of thumbs up when the speech was happening, in the immediate aftermath of the speech, it went up over 1,000 points. So I think at least the immediate reaction of the markets to the finance minister's speech was a positive one. I believe Gaurav is there with us as well. Gaurav, I don't know if you can go back in time, but somebody was telling me even for the so-called dream budget that Chidambaram presented in 1997, the markets didn't, at least on that day, did not end in the green.
That's right. And also on the dream budget was presented in the evening, so markets were not open then.
Correct.
That was in 1998. The budget getting started, presented only at 11 a.m. only in 2001. And also the volumes and the levels of markets in 1998 was far lower than it is now. But the reason the markets actually tanked during the latter half has got very little to do with the budget, it appears now. Yeah. It's got to do with one group of stocks, which has been at the receiving end of a very critical research report, and that probably brought down the markets because it holds a considerable weightage on both Nifty and Sensex. That is why the budget, the markets reacted in the manner that it did during the course of the budget speech. It really went up, and the markets were actually very, very welcoming of the fiscal deficit figure and also the capex announcements. But around afternoon, around 1 o'clock or so, because of a group of stocks that holds considerable weight in both Nifty and Sensex started falling, the markets came down but recovered a bit during the end.
I want to talk a little bit about the big picture, because if you go back exactly a year ago and budget 2022, as it were, and if somebody said inflation is going to be the #1 priority for the finance minister, for the RBI, you would have said that's not quite possible. But then Russia-Ukraine happened and the whole world changed. This is the inflation picture through the bulk of 2022. February end is when you have the war beginning, and then look at how it shoots up to 7.79% in the month of April. Above 7% by and large between April and September, but from October onwards it has been falling, and under 6% is where it was in the month of December. Now, whether this will hold, will the war ease up, will some of these recessionary tendencies also start playing up, what we're seeing in the Western markets, will inflation, Yamini Iyer, continue to be under the sort of comfort ambit, as it were, of the RBI, under 6%, or will this be again something that we have to sort of brace ourselves for?
I think we would be wise to brace ourselves for possible inflation, not just because of Russia-Ukraine, but if you look at what happened last year and what were some of the key drivers of inflation in India, climate and climate-associated unpredictability in the weather played an important role. The heat waves, the unpredictable, unseasonal rains affected both the Rabi and Kharif crop. It had a huge impact on wheat procurement. It also had a subsequent impact on rice. It had some impact on vegetables. It is likely, that the climate-related challenges are going to continue into this coming year and for a much longer period. And crucially for India, because food occupies such a large part of our consumption basket, shifts in food-related inflation make a huge difference on the lives and livelihoods of the bulk of India. Okay. So we have to be very, very conscious of the challenge of inflation. I think we also have to think harder about what are the best and most agile tools we can use to deal with inflation, because this climate-related inflation is not going to go away anytime soon, and its unpredictability is unprecedented.
Gurcharan Das, I think the markets reacted in a positive way during the speech and immediately after the speech. Like I said, it was 1,000 points up, primarily on the fiscal glide path. The fact that she's able to stick to 6.4% fiscal deficit for this year, 5.9 next year, and sticking to 4.5 for 25-26, that is something that the markets would love. Despite the 10 lakh crore headline figure in capex, to stick to the fiscal glide path, I think it's quite commendable.
Yes, I think so. And, just further to the point that you were discussing with Yamini, that we obviously, right now we are on a path where inflation is calming down.
Yes.
And that should continue. But there's an interesting point that the economic survey made, which is that the moderate rate of what we would, for India's advantage and our inflation advantage, we don't want to have imported inflation. She was talking mostly about domestic inflation.
Correct.
But there is an element of imported inflation that if the world economy remains moderately suppressed, meaning it doesn't, like China suddenly recovers and, it shoots up, the inflationary trends on commodities will go up. So that's not a good thing. So that's one of the areas that we should watch out for. A moderate recovery, we should wish for a moderate recovery in the global economy.
All right.
The other point, I think, if I may, I wanted to mention that, the railways, there was a very good presentation by the Minister of Railways, and there's a major allocation in infrastructure spend in the railways. However, I was on the Railway Restructuring Committee, so that's full disclosure, and I certainly believe that the railways deserve to create some competition. And many countries have done it and they've benefited from it. And so we are not saying privatize the railways. What we are saying is the rolling stock should be in the national domain. It should be nationalized. Rolling stock, the lines, the signaling and the railway lines, the stations, etc. But the rolling stock, that should be, we should have, in other words, if there's a Shatabdi at 7, which is the Indian Railways, there should be 730, a private sector railway. And now this requires an independent regulator. And the railways have not managed to do it. And they did try. Right. They did try to open bids, but nobody bid, except for ICRTC.
So at this point, Gurcharanji,
I do think that we should not let ourselves get complacent about that.
Gurcharanji, we had Ashwini Vaishnaji saying at this point they're not looking at privatization of the railways. Joining us now is the MOS PMO, Dr. Jitendra Singh. Jitendra Singh ji, namaste. Thank you for speaking with us. It's a Sabka Saath budget is what everybody is saying. I'd like to get your thoughts because the Finance Minister started her speech by saying it's going to be an inclusive budget. Your thoughts?
No, absolutely. Anand, you said it in one single phrase and expression. It is indeed an inclusive budget, and I think it is also a cumulative outcome of the foundation that Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi has sought to lay down for this nation over the last 8-9 years to build up a resilient, sustainable economy. And the budget today also in turn lays the foundation for the next 25 years to come, the Amrit Kal, so to say, when India is a frontline nation in the Community of Nations. And therefore, I think very wisely, very thoughtfully, the budget seeks to include every section of society, even those which hitherto felt that they were not adequately attended to by the earlier governments, be it the women, be it the Vishwakarma, the tool user, handlers, the youth, the green growth, which are the, I think, 3 or 4 focus areas. And then, of course, as the budget very appropriately describes, the 7 priorities of Saptarishi, which again is both contemporary as well as futuristic. You have the green growth on the one hand, you have the youth power on the other hand, you have skill component involved in that, and also at the same time reaching out to the last man in the last queue or reaching the last mile or the saturation points. So I think this is a budget despite all the constraints, and I think what is most remarkable is that we've just come out of COVID. And at a time when most of the nations of the world, across the world, are actually struggling to sustain their economies or to stabilize their economies, India has actually vindicated what is being popularly described as the bright spot in economy, as is being said by some of the economists across the globe.
You've named a lot of sectors and also factors that have been addressed in this budget, but Dr. Jitendra Singh, some of them, a lot of them fall under your domain, be it quality, be it personnel. But in terms of earth sciences, in terms of space technology, yes, there is a certain thrust towards artificial intelligence, but our space program, is earth sciences. Is that all taking a back seat in this budget?
Not necessarily, because when the budget talks of artificial intelligence, the AI hubs, this is actually, it owes its basis to the basic sciences. So you cannot be doing your honors in English literature without having read alphabet ABC. So it does not mean if the thrust is BA honors in English literature, the kindergarten ABC has been forgotten. It's actually an extension of that. But having said that, for example, now the as far as the sciences is concerned, I think we have tried to go across to the areas which were left hitherto relatively untouched. For example, there's a specific mention of 157 new nursing colleges to be established. Now, very, very thoughtfully, and I think it's an outcome of a vision, we have sickle cell anemia elimination mission, which was not thought about. So this is actually a kind of the prioritization that this government has given under Prime Minister Modi, particularly during and after the pandemic. Now you have joined public-private research initiatives under ICMR labs, which were not happening earlier. Now, as far as the ministry that I am directly related to, though it was not part of the speech read out by the Finance Minister in the Parliament, but if you go through the budget, in the estimates, there is about 25% hike in the budget allocated for earth sciences. Also, almost similar amount in science and technology, then also in biotechnology, and that is again a reflection of the reiterated prioritization which has come forth from none less than Prime Minister regarding the ocean resources, the deep sea mission. Let's not forget, he spoke about deep sea mission from the ramparts of Red Fort in his Independence Day address, not once but 2 consecutive years. In 2021 he spoke, in 2022. And that is reflected in the budget estimates today. Biotechnology again is a sector which has received 25% hike, considering that it deals with all the trials. Now, this is biotechnology department which has come out with 4 vaccines in just a span of 2 years. And that these vaccines, including the first ever DNA vaccine, the first ever nasal vaccine, the first anti-herpes vaccine, which has some contribution in also protecting the cervical cancer in females and in the women. So, what I am trying to say is that it's a hugely technology driven at the same time, and all this is part of the skill. So I don't think it will be either those who say so are possibly saying so because they are mandated to criticize, or they have not virtually gone through the details of it.
Well, my final question, Dr. Jitendra Singh, that while there is a vision for Bharat in 2047 as a Sampann, Samriddh and Samarth Bharat, there is also a certain roadmap for 2024. The ballot is somewhere written all across in the fine print. Vishwakarma plan schemes targeting all segments of society which are also critical vote banks, even in the elections to the states, the 9 states. Your thoughts on that?
Anand, I understand that question is inevitably expected, particularly when the budget has come out, when the government has come out with the last budget of this term. But I would also say that this is also an outcome of the conditioning which has gone into our minds, both in the citizen's mind, in the media mind, also in the common commentator's mind, that since it is on the eve of election, it has to do something to do with the election or with the ballot consideration. But I would rather say that this is also let's not forget that, or maybe we'll take some time to understand that Prime Minister Modi has tried to introduce a new kind of political culture in this country, which is that reach out to the one who requires us, reach to the last mile, and then leave it to the public to decide. So this is what is being reflected in this budget. It is addressing the requirements of the women. It is addressing the requirements of the middle class. The exemption limit has gone up from 5 to 7 lakh. The rebate has gone up. The exemption limit has gone up. It is addressing the self-help groups. It is addressing the green growth, which is futuristic, because let's not forget, in the next 25 years, India's economy is hugely going to depend mainly on 3 resources: the ocean resources, the Himalayan resources, and the green resources. And that has been taken care of. So, Prime Minister Modi's approach has been to do what is required to fill the gaps which have been left by the earlier regimes, and to reach out where it is required to be reached, regardless of the vote consideration. And that has been a kind of an approach which the government has followed in the 8 or 9 years. For example, if you see in the beginning itself, the Ujjwala estimates that was given by Nirmala Sitharaman, 117, 11.7 crore household toilets constructed. Nobody asked whether the toilet belongs to a Hindu or a Muslim or a caste or creed, wherever it was required. 9 crore drinking water connections given in rural areas, 9.6 crore LPG connections given. And the list was prepared by the administration depending upon the requirement, the households, the below poverty line. Nobody asked which caste, which creed, which religion. They didn't even ask whether you voted for us last time. They didn't even insist that now you vote for us next time. So I think Prime Minister Modi has introduced a different kind of work culture, which is very objective, which is very scientifically driven. And one of the glaring examples is that now we are moving on to aspirational blocks.
Yes, from aspirational district, 500 blocks.
Was a path-breaking, initiative in the planning. You know, otherwise the backward districts were based on more of a subjective criteria. This was totally based on 40, 41 indices. And now we are moving downwards, aspirational blocks. So I think this is very objective, very scientific and need-driven. And then it is left to the public whom they find the best.
Now the challenge is implementation. You've laid out the roadmap in the budget. Now you've got to implement it in the run-up to 2024. Dr. Jitendra Singh, thank you very much for speaking with us and joining us on Budget Day coverage. Now, ladies and gentlemen, let's turn our attention to the man who's been standing there patiently with a lot of numbers with him. The aspect of capex. The opposition turns around and says last year, like Mr. Chidambaram said, you didn't spend 22,000 crore. They didn't spend 22,000 crore out of 7.5 lakh crore. So this capex, how much of a difference is it going to make and how intrinsic is it?
So I think there's a fundamental, it's a philosophical thing with this government. They believe, you know, I think the classic example is Manrega versus capex, right? Manrega has been slashed quite substantially, 30,000 crores. Some of that has gone into the capital expenditure. And I think if you ask economists everywhere around the world, they will agree that capital expenditure is productive expenditure. You're spending money to create not just physical infrastructure, you're also spending money to create employment. So the headline figure is staggering. It's 10 lakh crores. Never in the history of India do we have a capital expenditure of 10 lakh crores. And I think for me, the dramatic story is how just 3 years ago in 2020-21, we were just spending 4.39 lakh crores in capex. In just 3 years' time, we've more than doubled from 4.3 lakh to 10 lakh crores. I think that trajectory, I don't see in that comparable period of 3 years anywhere in the world we've seen this kind of dramatic increase in capital expenditure. But the even more amazing thing is to do it along with the fiscal glide path being maintained. What she committed to last year, 6.4% of GDP this year, 5.9% next year, and in 25-26 to bring it down to 4.5%. I think that is an incredible achievement of the finance minister's glide path. They're able to stick to the fiscal deficit for next year and for the year after that, because you're increasing productive spending and at the same time you're maintaining that your finances are well within the reaches of the FRBM Act, as it were. I think doing both together, I think is pretty incredible.
And Zanta, you know, I was looking at the data. It says that the capex has been consistently being increased as far as this government is concerned.
Yes.
The targets have always been going.
And interestingly, even in the COVID years.
Yeah, even
so
in the COVID
especially
years.
when
Yes,
you
this
had
number.
your deficit grow up to 9%, in
Correct.
that year also you've seen 1 lakh crore
addition,
up
yeah.
in your
Correct.
addition in your capex.
I think the philosophy again for the government was COVID was a once in a lifetime event. They didn't know, you know, what had hit us, and therefore to try and revive growth at that time when corporates were not coming forward, individuals were not willing to spend, only government spending would have got us out of that hole. So which is why the COVID years, 2021 and 2022, you can expect that capex spending. But then coming out of the COVID pandemic, as it were, last year 7.5 lakh crores, very aggressive, and this going forward this year, 23-24, 10 lakh crores, just as aggressive. I think that is pretty incredible, because I think the India story is linked to this infrastructure spend in large
It's
ways.
gone up by 3.2 lakh crore in 2 black swan event years.
Yeah.
The
Correct.
pandemic, COVID, and then you have the Russia-Ukraine conflict. And
Correct.
had the Russia oil buy not happened, there would have been this kind of aggression. So a lot of global factors also.
About.
Yeah, this is the creation of those fixed assets because it's productive spending. Whereas you're spending on interest servicing, you're spending on pensions, government salary, employee salaries, and so on. That's not productive spending.
So it's something which is being done for the long term. So if I build a train or a railway track or an expressway or a greenfield project like the Delhi-Mumbai, imagine get from Delhi to Mumbai in 12 hours. How much of a cost is that going to bring down? You've laid down lakhs and lakhs of kilometers of roads. So you're bringing down the cost of diesel, cost of transport, and you're making markets accessible via these greenfield projects. So every aspect of this capex has a dimension which will impact our lives indirectly, maybe not immediately, but in the years to come. And it's also going to encourage some people to turn around and say, let's invest, let's get jobs. And that was an interesting statistic, even as we put out Rate the Budget, ladies and gentlemen, where they said that 1 rupee in the hands of a person yields 95, but if I put it in capex, it yields 3.45. Yeah. So that's a significant number. Overall rating of the budget, 41% have deemed it excellent, 18% say it is good. So it is about 60% there. So 60% marks for this budget. 16% say it's average. Poor is 25%. So that poor has come down from 30 to 25%. The average has gone up from 11 to 16%. The good, some of them swinging away from good into excellent rate. But overall, hovering around that 60% approval rating. You think that's a fair assessment?
Yeah, I think so. But whether it's on newsreading.com or whether it's on the markets, I think they did give the thumbs up in the initial sort of hours after the finance minister's speech. But I think ultimately there is going to be a lot of volatility this year. I don't think the Russia-Ukraine situation has fully played itself out. You're already seeing recessionary tendencies, particularly in the tech sector. So how all of this will play out over the next 6 months, maybe 10 months or so, I think that's going to have a huge
Interestingly,
impact.
all the analysts so far have given a thumbs up. But if you look at it, I mean, Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman has had this rating all through, all 5 years that she has presented the budget. So there is something very prudent about her politically and very responsible when it comes to her budget presentation.
The other thing is that you have to hand it to her that she has weathered the storm.
Absolutely.
As a finance minister, in the last 75 years of our history, hardly anybody would have gone through the kind of rigor that she has had through. And coming in through absolute bankruptcy, near NPAs, huge load, huge pressure on the system, two black swan events.
As the first defense minister of India, first full-time defense minister when the Rafale happened, the entire controversy, and then
it's been a rough road, but it's been a budget that everybody will remember. Thank you for joining us right through this continuous coverage. Fab job done, Zaka Jacob, Bade Shakil, and to the entire team here at CNN News 18 who've been at for us to bring you this kind of coverage. And of course, thank you viewers for staying with us right through this coverage. Really appreciate it. Stay with us. The show goes on the other side. So let's quickly look at the highlights of Budget 2023 and why we say it's Sabka Budget. It's got fiscal prudence in consideration, it's got poll considerations. So there is about the vision of Bharat in 2047, but there is also the vision of the ballot in 2024 and of course the build-up in the states. We got Zaka on the wall, not with the poll numbers, but with the budget numbers this time, and we look at all of that in detail. But let's signpost some of the salient features. The growth via higher capital spending up by 33% to 10 lakh crore rupees. It surprised everybody and the corporate world has welcomed it. Focus on fiscal prudence continues. No tax on salary up to 7 lakh rupees in the new tax regime. So it's an out and out rebate if your salary is 7 lakhs. If it is more than that, then you get into the slabs which have also been revised in the new tax regime. Tax savings for young and retired continue. Nudge to the new tax regime is very clearly evident. This capex target of 10 lakh crore is very, very important because this capital expenditure is what will solve perhaps the jobs problem, ladies and gentlemen. Is everybody happy about it? We have to wait and see whether or not everybody is happy about it. What are the other allocations and some of the other sectors that have been taken care of in this budget? Let's try and understand. The PM Awas Yojana, the outlay has been hiked by 66%. So the construction, building of homes, affordable homes for those for whom the dream of a makan, their own makan, a chhat on their head, was a far distant dream. They want to take that further. But what that does is that again generates employment, the steel industry, cement industry, and of course the labor intensive industry. 35,000 crore for green energy transition, and it's being incentivized because sustainability, green energy is one of the 7 pillars which the finance minister said Saptarishi. 2.4 lakh crore out of the 10 lakh crore is the outlay for railways. So infrastructure push continues. So they're on that path. They're staying steady and they're not deviating from it. It's perhaps the biggest ever allocation that's ever happened for railways. And then what are the other salient features that stand out? Is there something in there for the Kisan? Yes. Is skilling an important aspect that will be considered? Yes. And these pushes are over the next 3-year horizon. So they're looking beyond Lok Sabha 2024. And the Prime Minister very, very clearly said a Samriddha, Samarth and Sampanna Bharat. That's the vision for 2047. So let's try and break up what stands out for you and me, the salaried class, ladies and gentlemen. The highlight is tax mein kuch bachega ke liye, tax mein kuch bachega ke liye. For 2 years, nothing happened, Zaka. But this time, big bang announcements.
Yeah, I think for the middle class, absolutely, it is the tax numbers that everybody is crunching. They're looking at the new tax regime. First of all, the big picture, the new tax regime up until last year had 7 slabs. She's now slashed that down to 5. So it's an important thing. The big announcement, of course, is that if you have an income, like Anand was saying, up to 7 lakh rupees, then you pay no income tax whatsoever. Anything above 7 lakhs, then this is the new tax regime. These are the rates as per which you will be paying your tax. So let's assume you have an income of 8 lakh rupees, which means for the first 3 lakh rupees, you will not be paying any income tax. Between 3 lakh and 6 lakh rupees, that's 3 lakh rupees, you will pay 5%, that's 15,000 rupees. And then for the remaining 6 lakh to 8 lakh, which is 2 lakh rupees, you will pay at 10%, which is 30,000. So effectively, your net tax at an income of 8 lakh rupees annually would be 45,000 rupees, which would be a net saving, and we'll get to that in 1 second. But I think what they've essentially done, what the finance minister has essentially done, is rationalize both the slabs and the rates. From 7 rates, we've gone down to 5 rates now. And I think that is a very, very clear signal, a nudge that the new tax regime is where you need to be.
Where we go back to that number, ये बस trailer था, just to give you an understanding. There are many people who have more questions and more issues. We'll play out what the Prime Minister. There's one other important aspect, salient feature of the budget, which are the sectors where the focus has been kept, along with, of course, doing something for the middle class. It's not a populist budget, many people say, but if you look at the fine print, all the various dynamics which will be used over the next 18 months are there. The play is there. 15,000 crore for tribal development, an important vote bank which been spoken about. There is huge amounts of investment in agri-tech, agricultural startups, and of course rising millet production. Again, incentivizing the farmer, dairy, fisheries, again, water bank, which is going to be critical, which is going to be important. So revamped credit guarantee for MSMEs, another sector which is critical if you want to boost our manufacturing.
Let's listen in to the Prime Minister himself, who spoke to the media soon after the budget was presented by Nirmala Sitharaman. Let's not forget, this is the last full budget before the general elections of 2024. The Prime Minister has said that this has laid foundation for building developed India.
अमृत काल का ये पहला बजट विकसित भारत के विराट संकल्प को पूरा करने के लिए एक मजबूत नींव का निर्माण करेगा। ये बजट वंचितों को वरीयता देता है। ये बजट आज की एस्पिरेशनल सोसाइटी, गांव, गरीब, किसान, मध्यम वर्ग, सभी के सपनों को पूरा करेगा। मध्यम वर्ग के साथ खड़ी रहने वाली हमारी सरकार ने मध्यम वर्ग को टैक्स में बड़ी राहत दी है। इस सर्वस्पर्शी और विकसित भारत के निर्माण को गति देने वाले बजट के लिए मैं फिर एक बार निर्मला जी और उनकी पूरी टीम को बहुत बहुत बधाई देता हूं।
Samriddh, Samarth or Sampann Bharat. These were the three pillars on which India is envisioning its road ahead till 2047. But as Nirmala Sitharaman said, 7 pillars or Saptarishi. First up, inclusive development announcements for women, SC, ST, OBCs, other underprivileged groups, along with taking care of the salaried middle class, the government employees who are going to retire, pension person, senior citizens, everybody's been spoken about. Reaching the last mile or Antyodaya, this has been a stated vision, and they want to follow the ideals of Vinoba Bhave and the likes of Deen Dayal Upadhyay and Mahatma Gandhi. So aspirational blocks program for distribution of government services. So from aspirational districts, they move to block level, where they also want to encourage government, state governments to start building unity malls where everybody can converge. Farmers, local producers can come there and sell their produce. So unity malls is something which they want to push. Capex outlay increased steeply by 33%. So this is the infrastructure and investment. That's the third pillar. The fourth pillar is unleashing the potential. National data governance policy for innovation and research for startups. This time around, very aggressively pushing agri startups. So at the rural level, encouraging entrepreneurship and a certain level of initiative. Financial sector, it looks at the MSME revamp schemes, getting an infusion of 9,000 crore plus into the entire corpus and strengthening what is going to be the driving force in our push to becoming a manufacturing economy or a nation too, along with services. 35,000 crore capital investment towards energy transition. Green growth is something which we are committed to. Tomorrow.
Hello, Namaskar. This is First Post and you're watching Vantage with me, Palki Sharma. It was budget day in India today, the last full budget before the general election next year. Was it populist or prudent? They say good economics is bad politics. Could India's Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman balance the two? We'll bring you the highlights, cut the jargon and try to connect the dots. Also look at the global picture. Will there be a recession after all, and how much will it impact you? All of that is coming up. Plus, why South Korea of all places is becoming a key defense player in Europe. Why Canada has made drugs like cocaine legal. Yes, hard drugs, they're now legal. And what is the Pope doing in the Congo? You don't want to miss any of these stories. And one more, your killer look may be killing you. We'll talk about toxic makeup. The headlines first. The United States is preparing another aid